Evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting for June 10th, 2025. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Adler, Councilmember Joanette,
Present.
Councilmember Rubio. Here. Vice Mayor Veros.
Here.
And Mayor Armstrong.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. All right, next item, please.
Item 3, announcements. 3.1, changes and additions to the agenda. We have none this evening. Item 3.2, if you'd like to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and bring it forward. Item 4, public comment.
All right, at this time, the public is permitted to address the City Council on any non-agenda item related to the business of the City Council. You can speak on items that are on the consent calendar, including requests to pull an item from the consent calendar and the reason why you wish to pull the item or items. Please note that the decision to remove the item from the consent calendar is strictly at the discretion of the City Council. You can speak on requests for future agenda items or on special presentation items, of which we have one under Section 6 of tonight's agenda. You may speak on items that are not on the agenda, but are within the City Council's jurisdiction. Please be reminded that while the city ensures the First Amendment rights of its citizens, we do not accept nor endorse any offensive or hateful comments made during our meetings. The city celebrates the diversity of our community, and we strive to be a welcoming and open community for all. If you wish to speak during public comment or regarding an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and submit it to the city clerk. While we encourage your comments, unfortunately, state law prevents the City Council from discussing items that are not on the meeting agenda. City Council does take them very seriously, however, and if appropriate, the staff will follow up. All right, so public comment is open. Do we have any speaker cards?
Not on this item. We do not.
Okay. Do we have any written comment under general public comment?
No, not for general public.
Okay, then I will close item 4, public comment. We'll move on to item 5, the consent calendar. Does any council member wish to pull any of the consent items? Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion?
I move the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor Rose, second by Councilmember Rubio. Okay, and so motion passes 5-0 for items 5.1 through 5.14. Okay, next item, please.
Item 6, special presentation. 6.1, proclamation declaring June 2025 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Presentation to Anu Gupta, President of PFLAG Danville San Ramon Valley Chapter.
Okay, and we do have a proclamation. Councilmember Rubio would like to handle that?
Yes.
Thank you.
A proclamation of the City Council of the City of San Ramon declaring June 2025 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Whereas the City of San Ramon is committed to making San Ramon a place where everyone is welcome. And whereas the nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles, including that every person has been created equal, that all have rights to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that all shall be afforded the full recognition and protection of the law. And whereas the City of San Ramon recognizes the importance of equality and freedom and is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all its citizens, and preventing discrimination and bullying based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And whereas the City of San Ramon is strengthened by and thrives upon the rich diversity of ethnic, cultural, racial, sexual orientation, and gender identities of its residents, all of which contribute to the vibrant character of the city. And whereas many residents, students, employees, and business owners within San Ramon who contribute to the enrichment of the city and are part of the LGBTQ plus community, and whereas June has become a symbolic month in which the LGBTQ plus community and supporters come together in various celebrations of Pride. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of San Ramon does hereby proclaim June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in San Ramon and encourages residents to recognize the contributions made by members of the LGBTQ plus community and to actively promote the principles of equality and liberty.
All right, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you to the City of San Ramon for this Pride Proclamation and for being such an inclusive place where the LGBTQIA plus community can thrive. LGBTQ Americans have had to summon courage to live authentically, risking lives and livelihoods. In 1969, at Stonewall Inn in New York, brave trans people of color led the civil rights movement to protest violence and marginalization. And that is how the celebration of Pride started. Today, LGBTQ Americans inspire and bring hope to anyone who wants to live a life true to who they are. That is what Pride symbolizes. In San Ramon, they enrich every aspect of our lives as our kids, families, friends, beloved community, students, educators, entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, healthcare workers, service members, veterans, and so much more. They deserve to live free from stigma, violence, and discrimination, and that is what Pride symbolizes. They deserve equal rights in housing, employment, healthcare, education, and the justice system. PFLAG Danville San Ramon Valley has worked for over 30 years to create a just, inclusive world for our LGBTQ community. We can't do this work without the support of our city government, elected officials, school district, nonprofits, corporations, partners, allies, and community. Thank you all. Pride Month this year is celebrated in the backdrop of anti-LGBTQ laws and propaganda in the nation cruelly targeting our loved ones, particularly trans and gender-expansive folks, their lives, safety, physical, mental health, and dignity. Consider this: every 45 seconds, an LGBTQ kid attempts suicide, the second leading cause of death in this age group, even as the federal government proposes cutting the 988 lifeline for LGBTQ youth. We are all created equal. We all deserve safety. Pride is still a struggle for basic human rights and a life-saving affirmation of love and support. We are grateful for your support, and I'm so honored to accept this Pride Proclamation today as president of PFLAG Danville San Ramon Valley Chapter on behalf of the LGBTQ community and allies in the city of San Ramon, which truly upholds equality, justice, and inclusion for all. Thank you all.
Generally face us, but whatever you like.
Okay,
Oop.
it's already here. I don't want to touch it. Okay. Well, hi, I'm Angie Cortone. I use pronouns she, her. And I happen to also be a longtime resident and parent in the San Ramon Valley who has relatives and friends who identify as LGBTQ+. I am also honored to serve as an assistant principal at Monte Vista High School, where there is nothing more important to me than making sure every single one of my students feels safe, seen, and valued. Tonight, I'm here as a PFLAG board member, which supports families who have an LGBTQ+ loved one and may be seeking connections and resources. With all of these hats on, I am grateful to witness your adoption of this year's Pride Proclamation, because it means that leaders like you acknowledge that the well-being and safety of our LGBTQ+ community members deserves to be recognized and acted upon. As a cisgender, female-presenting woman, I recognize my privilege of not having to think about my identity most of the time. However, when I am in spaces where my invisible identities, the things other people can't see, perhaps differ from the people around me, I am suddenly fully aware of my discomfort, my anxiety of maybe being seen as inferior or even worse. My fear is that part of my identity is something other people don't agree with or even may not want in their presence, often based on stereotypes or fear of the unknown. Whether it's because of my age, my religion, or even my being neurodivergent, I may for just a moment experience what non-cis people or any marginalized people walk through the world feeling every single day. Some people may hear that and think, these things aren't things to worry about, but I would ask, why not? Is it because those people always feel accepted and safe in the places they are in? We live in a time where it is a privilege that I don't have to worry about someone fearing me just because I may dress in a way that is contrary to how society has told me I should. It is a privilege that I usually feel safe when I use the restroom. It is a privilege that I get to retrain myself to say, hello, awesome humans, instead of hello, ladies and gentlemen, as a way to show anyone I interact with that I understand we all have invisible identities. It's a privilege that I don't need a flag raised to feel seen. So I remember these things anytime I am even slightly uncomfortable. A few fleeting moments of my own discomfort is nothing compared to what many of our LGBTQ+ community members, some of whom are kids, walk through life feeling more often than not. I'm inspired by those who show up with courage every day just to be who they are. I will never fully understand, but I can try to at least imagine how exhausting and frustrating it must be. Acknowledging Pride Month is a celebration of our differences and recognition of inclusion and unity. But it is more than just that. It is an intentional act, a communication that we stand together with anyone who identifies as LGBTQ+, that our community is committed to ensuring everyone is safe. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, any council members have any comments?
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm very happy that my fellow council member, Marisol, read that proclamation, and I feel proud to be a member of the city and that we project that goal and that image of the city to be inclusive. I remember a number of years ago supporting my friend Sean Kumagai on the Dublin City Council when they were just trying to get a gay pride flag. And that was a difficult time and a very hostile, some of the meetings were hostile. And I just admired Sean and the people that supported that. And a year later, raised that flag and a lot of the hate had died out and it almost became like accepted, like, here we go, it's not that big a deal, but it was. And the way that Anu, the way you talked about the history, you can't forget the history. You kind of do, but I'm a history guy and we don't get to this point overnight and it takes a big struggle. And unfortunately, some people gave their lives. So we're here at a much better place and I'm just proud that we are. Thank you.
You want to go?
Yeah. Thank you, PFLAG, and all LGBTQ AI plus community for being part of building a strong, diverse community, diverse, inclusive community, which we call our city, beloved city, San Ramon. We appreciate all your efforts in making this city so that everyone is able to live, work, and play with equality and respect, irrespective of their sexual orientation, gender expression, or gender identity. So thanks for all your contributions. Once again, happy Pride Month.
All right. Robert?
Congratulations. Any environment where we could all be made to feel happy and inclusive is always a good environment. So congratulations and happy Pride Month to all. And it's getting better because of people like you. So thank you.
All right. There's all.
Okay. So first and foremost, PFLAG, Anu, and everyone who's part of PFLAG, thank you so much for all you do, for bringing awareness and just attention to something that gets overlooked. And it is so vital, as was mentioned, to our youth to know that we see them, that we hear them, and that we're here to fight for them and protect them. And myself being someone who has gone through a very fluid sexual orientation over my own life and having to be, today I really, I'm asexual and I share that proudly. But a lot of people, I can tell you when I shared that for the first time, people I knew for 10 years or more, all of a sudden started acting very differently with me. And they didn't want to give me hugs in the way they used to. It was very unusual. They put a little distance between them and I. And it was very interesting to me because I thought to myself, I was like, nothing changed about me. I've always been who I am. So on that note, I just want to say, sometimes, we have to speak up and we have to share, make ourselves vulnerable so that we can give strength to that next generation so they can be their true selves and live in their truth. And so just thank you for everything you do, and happy to support you anytime.
And thank you, Anu and Angie, for your comments this evening. Beyond the proclamation, of course, we've got the flag, we've got the lights in City Hall. But I think that's as representative of that we are a welcoming place, that San Ramon, everyone is welcome in San Ramon. And we're a city that strives to be very inviting, very welcoming, and representative of our very diverse community. So thank you for being here this evening and receiving the proclamation. So thank you. All right. Okay, next item, please.
Item 7, deferred consent items, we have none. Item 8, unfinished business. 8.1, public hearing, resolution number 2025-071, confirming the Preserve Landscaping and Lighting Assessment District diagram and assessments and levying the Preserve Landscaping and Lighting Assessment District assessments for fiscal year 25-26. Staff report by Gary Manuel, Landscape Program Manager.
All right. Gary, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor Armstrong and council and staff. I'm here to, as you mentioned, present to you the Preserve Landscape and Lighting District for fiscal year 25-26. I'm going to go over the methodology as to how we get the assessment rate, the existing improvements, operating cost, deferred maintenance, assessment methodology, and next steps. The district it's the newest district in the city. It was formed in 2018. The funds that are collected during the assessment are used only for the preserve to maintain existing improvements. And most of the improvements are maintained by the city, with the exception of the roundabouts. There's 3 roundabouts along Faria Parkway that we have not accepted yet. And that's due to some ongoing construction, so we're kind of delaying it. But it's expected that this coming fiscal year that we'll accept it and have full maintenance responsibility of the preserve. Existing improvements include a DG path, or it's a Gold Finds path that's on the east and the west side of Faria Parkway. We got just more trees, landscape. This is on the east side. Everything's brand new. You can see everything. The trees are still small. The plant material is still small. There's really, as far as maintenance goes, it's really just keeping the irrigation system running, fixing breaks as they come up, replacing plant material, straightening trees as they blow over. The wind kind of blows through there pretty good from the west. So city staff are always looking for things to fix, trees to upright and restake and everything else. This is the west side. Beautiful landscape. And this is just a few of our irrigation infrastructure items, irrigation controllers, backflows. That's a power pedestal right in the middle there. Just part of the overall infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure of the zone. These are the roundabouts I had mentioned earlier. There's 3 of them. They're fully planted. They each have a tree in the center. Again, we have not taken those over yet. These are the operating costs of the zone. We got city staff that again maintain the existing improvements. We got contracted services, utilities, PG&E and water. Materials include such things as irrigation parts, plant material and things like that. All those items that help maintain the existing improvements.
I apologize. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Go back one slide.
Yep.
You mentioned that the trees not taken over. I remember in the finance meeting, we talked about.
Yes,
that.
we did.
Is there a time limit? Like, is it based on a maturation of the tree or based on a contract with the Faria Preserve or whoever's?
As to taking it over?
Yeah.
It's a partnership. We try to delay it as much as we can. Once we take it over, we own it. So if say a construction truck goes through there and breaks the curb, we would then own that. So what we want to prevent that. And again, it's preserving the revenue, the funds and everything else within the zone. So as soon as we're comfortable with the construction traffic, we'll end up taking it over. And I expect actually probably the end of the fiscal year that we'll take it.
And that includes the circle, not just the tree, right?
That includes everything that are in these photos. Yeah, the trees, the landscape, the hardscape that's around it, the signage that's on it, the wall, it includes everything. Yeah. So what you're looking at here is all the amenities and all the improvements within the zone. It includes everything from the landscaping to the decorative pavement. And what you see on kind of the right-hand columns is the cost per unit, the expected life of each of these items, and the approximate cost to maintain them. Towards the bottom, the second row from the bottom, you'll see a total annualized replacement cost. So that's a number we look at, and that's a number we want to save every year in the event we have to start making repairs to all the infrastructure.
And I wanted to highlight, because we did talk about this too, the irrigation booster pump, the reason why for the high amount, if you could explain to the public.
Yeah, the irrigation booster pumps are very expensive. They're upwards of $80,000, depending on the size of the pump, but they're around $80,000. So that's a huge cost to the zone, but the life expectancy is around 30 years and they're really fully rebuildable. So it's not like if a part goes down, we have to replace the whole thing. If the motor goes out, replace the motor. If the VFD goes out, which is a virtual drive, which really gauges how much water is put out. If that goes out, we can replace it. Valves, we can replace.
Could you explain what it does? Public, like what the purpose of it?
So what it does is it gives enough pressure to the water to water the plants and the trees. So if there wasn't booster pumps or if, say, for example, you know how Faria is kind of a mound, it'd be tough for the water and the pressure to move out of the sprinklers, like the overhead sprinklers. And so they'll kind of dribble out, which you don't want that. You want to get the maximum flow out of this. So that's where a irrigation booster pump comes in. So you're getting adequate flow and efficient flow to the plant material that's there.
Okay.
Yep. So this is the estimated annual maintenance replacement cost is $159,000. We talk about general benefit, and this I'll talk about in the next presentation as well. This is the benefit of the landscape. So Faria's, the majority of it is very specific to the preserve landscaping and lighting district. There's a park up there. Yes, there is a beautiful park. But most of the traffic that's on Freya Parkway is residents. And that equates to over 90% of the cost of the maintenance to the zone is borne on their zone residents. The city general fund contributes 7.92% to the landscaping within the zone. And you'll see the next presentation is a LNL 1984.1, and there's a little different percentage share to the landscape in that. Except there's the accessible costs, incidental costs, which is the tax roll fees, administrative fees. So total maximum costs that we could assess this year is $155,100. So the maximum allowable assessment, so for the maximum allowable assessment for fiscal year 25-26 is $443.96. However, the zone is healthy. It's new. We don't expect anything major to fail in the zone. They have enough in their reserve to cover anything, any costs or any accidents that occur next fiscal year. So the actual assessment we're proposing is $295.99. And back on May 21st, we went with the Finance Committee. And their recommendation was to proceed with the recommended assessment rate. That again is going to be $295.99. To maintain an adequate reserve, which they are very healthy. And then continue with the routine maintenance that the public services staff carry out every day. Address issues such as trees, displaced mulch, erosion and washout to the gold fines that I had mentioned in the previous slides, and the other walkways and hardscape within the zone. Final steps to reestablish the district. On March 11th, City Council adopted a resolution ordering the preparation and filing of the engineer's report. That was done. On May 27th, the engineer's report was approved with the intention to levy and collect assessments and set this public hearing for today, June 10th. Following this hearing, the engineer will file the tax roll with the county, and that has to occur before August 10th. Recommended action by staff. City Council conducts the public hearing, which you're doing right now. Approve the resolution confirming the preserved landscaping lighting district, the assessment diagram and assessments, levying the preserved landscape and lighting district assessment for fiscal year 25-26. Short presentation. Any questions?
All right, let's go for staff question or council questions before we open up the public hearing. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I see the proposed assessment is $295.99.
Yes.
This looks like retail price, but anyway.
Very specific. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the current charges?
We're at 435, I want to say, right around there. But like I said, because it's a healthy zone, we decided not to charge the maximum rate. And that's something we'll look at throughout the other special assessment zones as well.
Okay, but the existing, see, what I understand here is maximum allowable is $443.
Yes,
But then we want to go with $295.
yes.
But is there any existing that we are already charging them? Or this is the first
Yes.
time we are rolling out?
Yeah, currently they're charged annually every year. And the charge right now it's in between 443 and 295. It's right around 430, I believe, 432. That's the fiscal year 24-25 assessment rate. And every year it goes up following the CPI. The CPI, February CPI this year was 2.7%. So what we do is take the current rate, add 2.7% to it, and that's how we get the maximum allowable assessment rate, which is at $443.
Oh, yeah, I got that one.
Yeah.
Because I remember where at one point their CPI was around 7.5, we had to increase to max that number. So
Yeah.
we are basically from this report, what I understand is we are decreasing their charges
Yes, sir.
from 443 to 295. I
Yeah,
hope.
we're going 295. Like I said, what we look at is the health of the zone, if they have a sufficient reserve to cover any accidents that occur in the coming fiscal year. And this zone has a very healthy reserve. So our decision to only charge the 295, that just covers the accessible cost. And that's staff time, and I'll go back to so what that covers is, if you look at the 155, 100, that assessment rate will cover the 155, 100. And that's to again, add 65,097.58 to the reserve. So that covers our annualized cost, and it covers all of the estimated costs for maintenance and staff time.
Excellent. I hope people from that Perea Preserve are listening to this, and hopefully they'll be happy to know that we are trying to minimize as much as possible.
Yeah, that's
So,
something we
yeah.
definitely don't want to we can't overcharge the zones. We don't want to do that. And whenever we can, we do reduce their assessments whenever we can. And again, you'll see in the next presentation that some we can't, because they're not in a point where they have enough in reserve to cover the maintenance costs. But it just so happens the preserve does. They're very healthy financially.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Other questions?
I do, Mayor.
Rob?
Just a couple of just questions. Would you mind going back to slide 5? It's the picture of, one, there you go, one
There
more.
we go.
So a couple of questions on the photo. The retaining walls along that side, your right side, is that managed by us or by FERIA, by the?
By FERIA,
And that's for
ever.
forever.
Yeah,
Okay, I want
yeah,
to pick, okay, forever. Okay. Thank you. So the second question I have is, it looks like the vegetation is pretty strong.
Mhm.
From the last rains we had, regarding the maintenance in the landscape, do you foresee any landslide issues coming down that road from the vegetation where we would need to mitigate any issues that could come up and I know it's hard to predict, but I didn't see anything going up there during the rains, but I'm just curious if is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better as the trees and the vegetation grab the soil? What's it like? Does that question make sense?
It does, and it's a good question. So what we do, we want to, and again, we don't own it. The preserve HOA owns it.
Mhm.
However, it's meant to grow, and once you have plant material or trees established in, say, a slope, a dirt slope,
Mhm.
that absolutely helps it keeps the soil intact.
Yeah.
Again, these are tiered, and that also helps. It acts as a barrier for that slope, hopefully preventing any landslides from occurring. But again, the plant material trees will definitely help. And again, it's relatively new. So as it grows, it's gonna hopefully maintain, and we won't have any issues with it. However, if we do, we'll just contact the HOA and come up with a solution for it.
Okay, thank you.
The designation, it seems pretty clear to me between general and the specific benefit, special benefit.
Mhm.
Is there any pushback? Have you gotten any pushback from that residents that maybe should be changed to a general from the specific? Is it pretty commonly accepted?
Not from the preserve. It's a new district. So we haven't really gotten any pushback. We are educating the zones. And I'll talk about this with the next presentation. We met with Zone 6 recently, which is West Branch, and that's Doherty and Crow. Some of the residents weren't aware that there's a shared responsibility within the zones. This one, like I said, it's new. And so far, we haven't heard anything relating to the shared or relating to, the landscaping or the shared responsibility.
Marisol, anything?
No, I do want to thank you for all the work and thank you for the presentation you gave us in the committee. We asked a lot of questions back then, and you clarified them then. And so thank you for staying at or below the CIP. So we appreciate that. I'm sure our residents do as well.
I
Thank
hope,
you.
yes.
And Gary, the only question I have is really just because we're doing a climate action plan later on this evening. All the irrigation is a fairly new development, but is it all recycled water up there?
It is, and it's all bubblers. So in the irrigation world, you have rotors, which are those big cannons that kind of shoot the water out. You'll see on sports fields. Then you have overhead, which is the pop-ups, and they kind of just spray. Those are generally inefficient. So these are bubblers. They put the water where it's needed. So if the wind picks up through there, it's not going to really impact the irrigation. And also, as Councilman Joynet talked about, is the pump also helps out as well. It helps actually save water. So the water's getting put where it's needed and it's adequate for the plant material.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have any more questions. We need to conduct a public hearing. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Move to open the public hearing. Oh, I'll second that.
Oh, so we've got a motion by Vice Mayor Veros, so it looks like, and a second by Councilmember Rubio. All right, motion to open the public hearing passes 5-0. Public hearing is now open. Do we have any speaker cards
I have no speaker cards for this item and
Any-
no written comment.
and no written comments? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, got a motion, Councilmember Rubio. Second by Councilmember Adler. Okay. Motion passes 5-0. And so the public hearing is closed. And do we have any further comments by the council before we go to a vote on this?
Oh, thanks, Gary, for detailed study. And we always see that the assessments, especially as I already mentioned, hopefully Feria Preserve appreciate that we are not going with the maximum allowable annual assessment. We are considerate about what is required, and we are going with $295. So thanks.
Okay, other comments? Anyone else? Okay, seeing no other comments by council, can I get a motion to adopt resolution number 2025-071, confirming the preserve landscaping and lighting assessment district diagram and assessments and levying the preserve landscaping and lighting assessment district assessments for fiscal year 2025-26.
I move the motion.
I will second that.
Motion and a second. Okay, motion passes. So we will now move on to the next item. Thank you, Gary. Next item, please.
Item 8.2, public hearing, resolution number 2025-072, confirming the landscaping and lighting district number 1984-1, diagram and assessments, and levying the landscape and lighting district number 1984-1 assessments for fiscal year 25-26. Report by Gary Manuel, Landscape Program Manager.
All right, Gary, you're back up.
Back up, yes. This one's a little longer. I did shed some slides, but it's bigger district, been around a little longer. So this again is the Landscaping Lighting District 1984-1 public hearing. During this presentation, I'll be talking about the district itself, the purpose of the reserve study, maximum assessment versus annual assessment, underfunded zones, and then some improvements. Zone 6 West Branch I'll be talking about. And lastly, with the presentation, I'll talk about where we're going with the reserve study and some of the improvements we made with it this year. So the 1984-1 was formed in 1984. And again, it's just like the preserve, annual assessments are collected through the Contra Costa County tax bill for each of the homeowners within the zones. And the assessment is not based on a property value, but the estimated benefit of all the improvements, and it's split into general and specific to the zone. And the funds, again, they pay for all the maintenance, all the lighting, and other improvements within the zone, such as gazebos if they're within the zone. Within San Ramon, there are 19 separate zones, 2 citywide zones, and 17 other special zones. And again, this 1984-1 is reestablished every year by city council action. And with each of these zones, the maximum assessment, if we had to raise it, we have to comply with Prop 218, which is the Right to Vote on Taxes Act. This is a diagram of the landscaping and lighting 1984-1, everything on the left side, all the colors. Again, we met with the Finance Committee on the 21st. They recommended to proceed with the assessment rates for each of the 19 zones. They recommend maintain an adequate reserve with each of the zones, schedule replacements, repair of installed improvements, continue with routine maintenance, address safety issues within the landscaping, and where possible, incorporate green or cooling spaces within the landscape and on the trail network if applicable. And again, to develop a timeline for Zone 6 outreach and balloting. Purpose of the reserve study, it is ensure solvency of the zone by maintaining adequate reserves to fund deferred maintenance, emergency and unforeseen repairs. And how we do that is we're maintaining existing improvements. That's what the staff do every single day. Make planned replacements. That's how we have CIPs for each of the zones, and also make planned improvements. And the difference between assessment rate and maximum assessment rate is what the levied assessment rate is an annual assessment. As I mentioned, be paid for on their county tax bill every year. The maximum assessment rate is a do not exceed rate. And that's, we can't go over that rate without going to the zone residents and going to ballot. And here's a breakdown of the assessment rates by zones. Zones 1 and 2 are approved by property owners in 2006, and it is increased annually up to 2% of the CPI, of February CPI. Special zones 3 through 12, zone 3, let me step back, zone 3 were approved by property owners in 97, and the rates really, they differ by zone. The max rates differ by zone. Zone 4 was a special election back in June 2023. And that zone, the maximum rate matches the CPI. Where I talked about citywide zone 1 and 2 is a max rate of 2%, or a max increase of 2%. Zone 4 is a max rate that matches the February CPI, which is really efficient. And Zone 5 was reassessed in 1997. Zones 13 through 17 were established after 1997 through, again, property owner ballot. And again, the rate varies by zone. Zones 18 and 19 established after 97. And with and the same thing with Zone 1 and 2, we could increase 18 and 19 up to 2% of the CPI. We can't go over that number. This year, the CPI was 2.7. Here's kind of a breakdown of max increases for zones 1 and 2. So the current assessment rate for zone 1 is $35.27. Zone 2 is $76.21. That's also the maximum rate, the current maximum rate. Combined, those equate to $111.48. What we are proposing for next fiscal year is to raise the Zone 1 assessment rate to $35.98 and the Zone 2 rate to $77.78. $113,273, which brings the new total to $113,71. Again, we're limited to 2% with these two zones. This next slide is kind of a breakdown of each of the zones, the recommended max assessment rate, the current assessment rate, and the proposed assessment rate. The far right column shows the difference, the changes. Vista San Ramon, again, we're reducing Vista San Ramon by $94 this coming fiscal year. There, it's a healthy zone. We don't feel we need to charge the maximum rate. So we're reducing it down to $300 from $394. But the majority of them, we are going to increase. Again, that's to maintain solvency of the zones and to build up the reserve for replacement of the current and existing amenities. These are the underfunded zones. And on the right side, it'll show the projected negative balance for each of the zones listed. The ones that are in bold, those are at their maximum assessment rates. So we can't go above their max rates right now unless we go out to ballot. So a summary of the projects for the current fiscal year. We had some landscape renovation and tree placements for several zones. These are just scheduled improvements for the zones. Here's again, Summerwood Loop. That one had a really good amount of landscaping installed in mulch. It looks really good. One thing I mentioned is solvency of the zones, having a healthy balance. Zone 17, Henry Ranch, is a good example of why we hold a reserve in the zones. Zone 17 experienced a retaining wall failure. Zone 17 is on San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And this retaining wall is just off the sidewalk. That failed this year. But because it was healthy, the zone was able to immediately afford the fix to this retaining wall failure. Left side shows the failure. It's still in the process of getting fixed, but you can see on the right side photo that it's upright and again stable. We also had irrigation upgrades, controllers, and the remote control valves in three different zones this fiscal year. The left side is a brand new controller. It's a CalSense CS3000. That's how we schedule the irrigation to water. Canyon Lake saw some these are called remote control valves or field valves. This opens and closes and allows the water to flow through and waters the zone. Left side, you'll see an old outdated valve. The right side is a brand new one. And these valves are fully rebuildable. We don't go in because it failed and just replace it. We could replace almost every part of the valve. But at some point, if we're replacing the same part on the valve, we replace it. It doesn't make sense to put money into a valve that's going to continue to fail. That's not good sense and utilization of the funds within the zone. Vista San Ramon, this is the zone that is on El Costa across from Central Park. This one got a new controller. Old one was on the left. And our talented electrician and irrigation staff installed the new controller and rewired the zone to make it nice. It's safer for staff if they ever have to go in there and work on it. There's no exposed terminals. Everything's enclosed. These are scheduled for the coming fiscal year, 25-26. Some of the projects of irrigation landscape staff are going to be working on. We're going to have more landscape. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I apologize. Can
Yep.
we go back to the last slide? I'm sorry.
This one right
Yeah.
here. Yep.
While we're installing these control boxes, are we also installing water leak protection?
So
Or
that's,
are they built in?
yeah. So these controllers have had that built in.
Oh, okay.
They have what's called a high flow alert. So if the system detects running water, that's outside of a programmed number, then it'll trigger an alert. If it detects water outside of a scheduled watering, it'll produce an alert. And a lot of times it's called alert shut off. So instead of allowing the water to continuously run, it'll just shut the system off. And these are extremely smart controllers, literally smart controllers. They have something called water sense attached to them. They have weather tracking ability, so if it's going to rain, it doesn't water. The city staff can operate them via cell phone. They're city-issued phones. They can operate it right at the controller, or they can do it from a central location like a computer. It's all cloud-based.
Nice.
Very efficient, very efficient. And these could be accessed at any time. So scheduled landscape renovations in the zones that you're seeing here. Citywide is one of the largest zones, so that comes up every year, and there's always something to renovate. Always plant material to replace, trees to replace. We call it infill, to where if plants die, we'll take it out. We'll just plug some new plants in. We call it infill in the industry. Occasionally, we'll do mass renovations if there's total die out, whether there was a failure in the irrigation system, an accident, or the plant material reached its useful life. We'll go in there and do a complete renovation of it. And that usually involves upgrading the irrigation system as well. Here's the overcrossing that we walked last week. It's almost there. We're looking at end of summer, the next fiscal year. It's almost complete. It's nice. So that's a huge addition to the flow within San Ramon and those who use the trail network. One zone will get a new controller, and that's Vista San Ramon. This is what we call an arterial controller. So this one's on El Costa, and that's going to get replaced with the new one that I showed in a previous slide. The zones that you see right now, there's no scheduled improvements in these zones, and that could be for various reasons. They had already had significant upgrades over the last couple fiscal years, or like with Zone 1, there's no scheduled improvements because we have sufficient lamps in stock to make replacements as they burn out. West Branch, I'd like to touch on West Branch, that we've already started outreach with West Branch this fiscal year. We're going to ramp it up for next fiscal year. West Branch is Crow Canyon Road at Doherty, where the two fountains are. That contains 4 HOAs. In addition, there's 167 parcels not within the HOAs. So it's quite a large zone as far as the segmented population within the zone. It also has quite a few amenities within the zone that most the zone residents didn't even know that they paid into to maintain. The current rate with Zone 6 West Branch is $380. The maximum rate is $380. And it's been at the max rate since 2009, 2010 fiscal year. It's been quite a long time. And the fund is projected to go negative in 3031. And that seems, wow, that's pretty far out there, but it's not. It's out there 5 years because we're not making improvements to the zone. We're not fixing the fountain, for example, the step fountain. The zone, unfortunately, doesn't have the money in its fund balance to cover the costs of these needed upgrades. And they're only solvent because we've delayed all these improvements. And this is a breakdown of the 25-26 fiscal year operating costs. The step fountain is at 0. It's not operating currently. It hasn't operated since fiscal year 2022-23. So we're not putting any money in to maintain it. City staff, the aquatic staff will go in there if needed, blow out the catch basins and everything else to keep it from further deteriorating. But that's pretty much the extent of the maintenance to it. We do have the reflection fountain that is operational. We do have that under contract. We have the landscape tree contract in there, which is approximately 63,000. It's actually reduced from that, which is good. Maintenance equipment we budget for, and that's for repairs and supplies needed to maintain the zone. The PG&E, gas and electric, is estimated to be around 32,800. Water is the number one expense of the zone, and that's at 71,000, projected to be 71,500. And again, it's only solvent because we are not doing any improvements or maintaining that fountain, the step fountain. Any questions with that before I move on? Anything at all? Okay. And these, what you're looking at here is all the deferred fountain. I'm sorry. Yeah, no problem.
Also in the finance meeting, I just want the public to also hear why the fountain just can't be ripped out, because I know that was a lengthy conversation, but if you could summarize it really quick for us here, why we just can't just cut it out. And
Yeah, so the zone, it's owned mostly by the zone. The zone residents pay 70% of the maintenance to that fountain. And we don't know if they even want it or not. And that's what the outreach is gonna hopefully resolve. They may vote to keep it. And if they keep it, then we got to look at, one direction for an assessment rate. So we don't want to prematurely do anything to, that extent before we know 100% of what we're going to do with that fountain. The consensus with the HOAs is that they want to convert it to a landscape, which again will ultimately in the long run save money for the zone. It's more sustainable, I think. As far as the overall cost, not just the zone residents, but the citywide share as well will get reduced too. So again, we don't want to prematurely do anything until we're certain. Yeah. And that you'll see later on, I have a timeline for when we're projected to see or to have that decision made by. We talked about the improvements within the zone. There's a number of improvements that zone residents may not even know about. It's a big zone. You got residents on the north side of Crow, and some, when we did the public outreach this year, didn't even know that they maintain the fountains, which is, and I don't blame them. I don't. I mean, it's a big zone, and Vice Mayor Veros, you mentioned a lot of the zone residents don't know. They don't know what their assessment rate is or what their actually rate does maintain. And part of this outreach is to educate them. And that's something we want to do in the future with the other zones that are underfunded. It shouldn't be a surprise as to what the money that the rate goes to maintain. It shouldn't be a surprise to them.
Yeah, so few residents, when they talk to me, they ask me why they don't see the fountains running there, right?
Yeah, I know.
So it looks like their HOA is not doing really good job on sharing the information with them. Because when I ask them, hey, did you talk to your HOA? What's going on with your fountains? Then they're like, we don't know.
Yeah.
How it is connected to HOA, they don't have idea about. Their only thing is like why these are not running. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a CRM the other day. Actually, I didn't get it. It was the facilities program manager. We got a CRM relating to that. Why isn't it running, or when's it going to start to run again? Occasionally we'll get that question. So again, there's these improvements. There's a number of them, anywhere from the fountains, sound walls within the zone. There's 3 gazebos. There's a vehicle bridge. There's a number of pedestrian bridges that span the creek that runs through the zone. There's an asphalt trail that runs through the zone. There's a wooden fence that is also part of the zone. So there's a number. This zone, probably out of all the zones, probably except for the preserve, has the most amenities and improvements that I think out of any other zone in the city. Zone 6 has the most. And the expected 30-year replacement cost for all these I mentioned is around 7 million. It's quite extensive. I mentioned earlier that the fountain's been off since 22-23 fiscal year, and that was due to one of the vaults that contained motor that it flooded, compromised some of the equipment. The equipment failed, and the cost to replace it was $110,000. And it was determined back then that it wasn't viable at the time to spend that much money to get the fountain up and going with other things wrong with it. So that was really just a starting point with the number of issues that the fountain had. This would have put a Band-Aid on it essentially, and failure in other parts and with the zone, with the fountain would have occurred. So what we talked about doing with that 110,000, which is still within the zone, we talked about transferring in and maybe adding it to the reflection fountain, doing some maintenance or some upgrades to the reflection fountain, developing an alternative to the step fountain. And then also, we talked about maybe just returning the funds to the zone. Again, I mentioned this year there are no improvements to the zone. And other than the scheduled landscape maintenance, irrigation maintenance, and fountain maintenance to the reflection fountain. And that's all done, most of it's done in-house by landscape staff. So we're not abandoning the zone. There's always staff in the zone, fixing irrigation, and keeping it moving and keeping other things from failing within the zone. So this is the timeline that the Finance Committee recommended. We came up with one. Collect zone data, we've done that. We have that within the reserve study and other means. So we collected the zone data. We're in the progress of zone outreach. We started it earlier this calendar year. We're going to pick it up again next fiscal year. And then with that information, we're going to compile a mailer to all residents within the zone. And that mailer will summarize some of the revenue, the expenditures, and we'll also ask if they like the step fountain, if they want to keep the step fountain. That plus the reflection fountain. And then that estimated completion is right around the end of November. We're hoping to get all that done. I think that gives us a good buffer, and it gives us time to do it. And then we'll have an in-person meeting with zone residents and to talk essentially about the feedback from the mailer. And we're hoping to have that done by the end of January 2026. And then based off of that meeting, and hopefully by then we'll have a definitive answer as to what they want with the step fountain. And from that, we'll come up with we'll determine the maximum assessment for the zone and then a new assessment rate for the following fiscal year, which would be the 26-27 fiscal year. It's a long process. We don't want to take shortcuts. It's an expensive process. If they do decide to keep it, it'll be expensive. So we don't want to rush through this thing. And we want to give the zone residents time to ponder it, think about it, and come to us with questions.
So one question, as we are doing this, asking the HOA to do the public outreach, can we ask HOA to share the details on their outreach and what was their survey so that we know exactly? Because looks like HOA, we are thinking that they are able to diffuse the information, but here the residents don't have a clue that this is happening. So
yeah, so what we've done we've met with the board, the HOA board, and asked them to disseminate the information to the other residents within the zone. It's kind of a small step. I think it's instead of going all out and talking to all the residents, we kind of want to have a soft approach first to meet with the board And then, yes, we did ask him to talk. And then the outreach, right around January, we'll meet with the rest of the zone residents, including the board.
Okay, so we are going to do that, not HOA.
Oh, we're doing it.
We are doing.
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we own it. I mean, we're taking full ownership of it. So,
Sounds good.
we're going to be involved in every aspect of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and let's make sure as much as possible to share that meeting information with all the residents. So are we planning one meeting or couple of meetings?
We'll have, we think one, however, if we have to have another one, it'll depend on who shows up.
Okay.
And if it's required, if more questions come up during that meeting, then we may have a second one to address those questions if we need to do any more research. Or if they want to see maybe a rendering of the landscape, if they decide not to get rid of, or if they decide to get rid of the fountain, they may want to see a rendering of what's possible. So we'll go back and have a secondary meeting, if necessary.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And the end of all this, we hope to go to ballot right around May of next calendar year. Yeah, yeah.
I have a question about the fountain that's very popular around graduation, up Bollinger, past Little Cost, up the hill on the right. It's seems it's a beautiful fountain. Is there any issues with the maintenance on that? Because it seems to be very popular, and how is it holding up?
So the Bollinger Fountains outside of the zone, that falls really
Mm.
within the Doherty Valley. That's all maintained by the M29 funds.
Mhm.
But as far as I know, and the PM for the aquatics isn't here, but I haven't heard of any.
Okay.
However, when the step fountain was operational, and those of you who've been with the city a while, there was some incidents of foam right around graduation time.
Mm.
That does deteriorate any of the parts of the mechanical parts of the system. I know it's fun and I guess it's something we can kind of not really shut down. It's fun for the kids, but there could be some detrimental, effects to the infrastructure.
Maybe have the principals make an announcement,
Yeah.
although that might make them
That
want to
may
do
have
it more,
happened
but
before,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
we kind of let it go. The fountain's not operational anymore, that step fountain. To my knowledge, and I'm trying to think over the years if that Bollinger Fountain had the same, I can't remember.
No,
any-
I think there have been attempts, but it's just not, it's not like the step fountain where it would foam out into the
Didn't
street.
blow in.
So I think people have tried it. It's just, so let it be known publicly that even if you try it, it does not work.
Doesn't
Thank you.
work. Sorry.
Thank you.
Go there. I mean, it's a beautiful fountain, the Bollinger Fountain, and there's
Yeah,
always
it is.
somebody, people, taking photos, and I've seen, wedding parties up there
Yeah.
taking photos as well. So that's a great fountain.
Thank you, Eric.
If that fountain stops, we get to hear from residents.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
People call
Yeah.
us.
Yes. Any question to the timeline before I move on? So again, we're coming to the end of the presentation. On March 11th, a resolution was adopted describing new improvements, ordering the preparation of the filing of the engineer's report, and that was on March 11th. May 27th, engineer's report was approved and adopted a resolution of intention to levy and collect assessments and set this public hearing. June 10th, we're having it right now. And then again, by August 10th, the assessment roll along with the assessment diagram will be filed with the Contra Costa County Assessor's Office. Staff recommends to the council that we have this public hearing, which you obviously approved. And again, approve the resolution confirming the Landscaping and Lighting District 1984-1 diagram of assessments and levy the Landscape and Lighting District number 1984-1 assessments for fiscal year 25-26. Any questions?
All right, council, do we have any clarifying questions?
None for me, man. Thank you.
Anyone? The only one I have is back to the Zone 6.
Mhm.
On that mailer you talked about, it's going to include expenditures and things like that. Will it also include the cost of different options for them potentially? Because what if they come back and say, yeah, we'd like to fix it? That they got to know what they're signing up for, that's going to show up on their bill, or maybe converting to landscaping or whatever. We're going to provide a little bit of information, our best guess on that.
Yeah, we'll provide that information. We have an estimate for a conversion already. However, and we probably do with, to fix it and get it operational. I can look back in some of the info we have relating to the CIP projects and what needs to get replaced and get an estimate just based off of that. So we're going to provide as much as we can. We're going to be transparent with it because it doesn't help that we hide anything. It doesn't do them any good.
Yeah.
It doesn't make us look any good. And again, we want to take full ownership of this project and ensuring that the assessment rate and what they're paying is gonna come back and do so good within the zone, and obviously make the zone residents happy to live within San Ramon, and that's what makes us number one.
Okay.
I had to throw that in. Yes.
All right.
And Mayor, I also want to point out that with Zone 6, it's not just the challenge of a cost of converting versus a cost of restoring. As Gary pointed out, you have $7 million worth of infrastructure that needs, potential replacement in 30 years. There will also be a cost estimate for how much needs to be increased just because they're at the cap and costs are going up throughout the zone. So you're really looking at several different factors. And I think the most important factor would just be the increase of costs and hitting the cap. We're experiencing that with almost every zone that hasn't been renewed or has some type of sunset, or not sunset, but CPI escalating factor. I mean, many of them, I managed the L&Ls 15 years ago, and they're at the same cap rate as they were 10, 15 years ago, which is great. We've been doing everything we can to stretch the dollar, but at some point there is a need to go back out and say, we just need an increase to keep up with costs.
Yeah, I think Danville experienced something similar to that just recently, had to change their LLAD rates. Okay, if there's no other questions, we will move to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
A motion, Councilmember Rubio. Second, Councilmember Adler. Okay. Motion passes 5-0. Public hearing is now open. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
I do not have any speaker cards or written comment for this item.
Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, motion and second by the same. Everybody voted?
I have.
Okay, there we go. Okay, motion is passed. Public hearing is now closed. It's before the council. Any final comments before we take the matter up for a vote?
I just want to say thank you for all the work you did. I know you make it look like it just happened overnight, but I know it didn't. I know it took a lot of work, and there was so much that we had to go back and adjust with the budget and everything. And so just appreciate it. And I think it's a great idea that we are reaching out to the community members to get in that zone to make sure that we're getting feedback from everybody on everything that we're doing. So I thank you.
Absolutely. And one thing I didn't mention is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And not just myself. It's from, John Bell to Shane. This year, and Stephen mentioned he participate in the creation of the reserve study. I've seen his name on staff reports going back to '06. It's been a long time. So the evolution of the reserve study is kind of progressing. This year, in years past, we manually entered everything into that report by hand. We went to the Munis financial software, entered in all the finance information by hand into the reserve study. This year, however, I kind of partnered with our senior analyst, Matt Ramirez, and he automated it. He connected everything to Munis. So all we do now is hit refresh. And we can get real-time numbers. Throughout the fiscal year, I could hit refresh to the reserve study and see exactly how healthy these zones are at any point during the fiscal year. So that's a huge progression of the reserve study. And then this current fiscal year will probably do the same to the preserve. It just keeps from, this human error and everything. I could even hit the button and mess it up, but it's a single button. But we do plan on doing it for the preserve, and it makes it so efficient at this point. So we're always looking at efficiencies.
Okay. Any other comments?
Thanks, Gary, for great presentation. Only if one request, if possible, if we can have on this map, if we can have some artery roads or some major roads, that for me, that will give some perspective on
Sure.
where I'm looking for. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that will help us.
Yeah,
But
that's a
otherwise,
map that's
thank
been
you.
around, but we can improve that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and I'll also just say thank you to you and all the staff for all the hard work that goes into this. I know it is a lot of work and number crunching, but I'm glad you got some automated tools to help you out
Helps,
now.
anything helps.
Yeah.
Yep.
A little bit concerning that we do have several zones that are gonna kind of reach the maximum here in a few years. So we're gonna probably be doing some more votes, I guess.
Most likely every year.
Yeah.
But again, it's needed, it's necessary,
Yeah.
and we'll make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no other comments, then we'll move on. I'd like to get a motion to adopt resolution 2025-072, confirming the landscaping and lighting district number 1984-1 diagram and assessments and levying the landscape and lighting district number 1984-1 assessments for fiscal year 25-26.
I move the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion Vice Mayor Rose, second Councilmember Rubio. And, okay, motion passes and thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your report, Gary. Thanks for all the hard work. Okay, next item, please.
Item 9, new business, 9.1, public hearing, resolution 2025-073, repealing and replacing the climate action plan in its entirety as adopted by resolution number 2011-094 and adopting the updated climate action plan and the California Environmental Quality Act and greenhouse gas emissions thresholds and guidance report. Report by Ryan Driscoll, Associate Planner.
All right, that was a mouthful. Ryan, you're up.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this item is for the updated Climate Action Plan, or CAP for short. The city's current CAP was adopted in 2011. And there's a need to update the current CAP based on state greenhouse gas reduction targets. And so the updated CAP was originally part of the General Plan 2040 project, but due to some state law timing requirements, the General Plan 2040 was adopted by the council in December 2023. And the updated CAP continued on a subsequent review process afterwards. So you can think about this updated CAP as an evolving roadmap for the city, establishing a long-range greenhouse gas reduction targets consistent with state requirements for the years 2030 and 2045. And over the last year and a half, the city has gone through a public review process with the updated CAP. We reviewed the updated CAP with the recently formed Climate Action Plan Task Force. And we've also reviewed it with the Planning Commission at multiple public meetings with both bodies, received input from both bodies on the development of the cap, and both bodies also supported the updated cap. So throughout this process, we've had a consultant team working with staff closely on the development of the cap. And our consultant team is going to present the presentation on the details of the updated cap for you and go over specifics. So I'm going to invite Kelsey Bennett and Emily Saul from Rincon Consultants to give the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Who's first? Is this Casey or Emily? Or did I get the names right?
Kelsey Bennett,
Kelsey.
Environmental and Sustainability Planning Director with Rincon, hired to assist with the CAP update effort. So good evening, council members. So there it goes. I was reading the wrong arrow. So why is the cap being updated? Ryan gave a good overview, but to further expand upon that, an updated cap is the main 2040 general plan implementation strategy for establishing a GHG emissions reduction plan through 2045. That's consistent with the state targets Ryan mentioned, which are specifically Senate Bill 32 and Assembly Bill 1279. In addition, the 2040 General Plan Mitigation Measure GHG-1 requires the city to adopt and implement an updated cap that is also CEQA qualified. And for an overview of the definition of a CEQA qualified cap, that is a cap that provides substantial strategies and evidence for reducing community GHG emissions in order to meet the state and local targets that have been established, establishes a framework for ongoing tracking of GHG emissions in the community, and also undergoes environmental review pursuant to CEQA. And so what is the overall purpose of the CAP update? It's generally a jurisdiction's plan for addressing climate change via reducing a community's GHG emission levels overall. And as those GHG levels continue to increase and threaten our health and safety, caps are becoming more important than ever at the jurisdictional level. State law requires every jurisdiction to reduce its fair share of GHG emissions and to meet state emission goals. And the previous cap addressed meeting the state goals for 2020, and this cap update would establish actions to meet the state goal for reducing emissions 40% below 1990 levels by 2030, and to show progress to meet the state's ultimate goal of carbon neutrality by 2045. And with the co-benefits of lower energy costs, reduced air pollution, and supported economic development, the reduction of GHGs also helps to improve the quality of life for residents throughout the San Ramon community. So for any of us planning nerds and you would like to know the planning steps in this CAP process, first we started off with preparing an updated baseline inventory of the community GHG emissions. Then future emissions were forecasted based on current and projected land uses and population throughout the community. Then the city determined GHG emission targets for upcoming years, including the next state required year of 2030. And then based on that delta needed to reduce forecasted emissions to the target levels, strategies such as measures and actions were identified for the various sectors, in this case in the form of the cap itself, for which we are here today. And that's basically where we are at the current planning step here with that blue arrow. And then the city identifies funding and implements the measures themselves. And the city would continue to track and monitor GHG emissions and progress related to implementation of the cap. So what is that first step? What is that baseline for the cap update? Basically, this was a 2019 overall annual GHG emissions inventory that covered community-wide activities throughout San Ramon's geographic boundary over which the city has jurisdictional control or influence, therefore within the city limits. The inventory has 6 main sectors or sources of emissions. These include on-road transportation, building natural gas usage, off-road equipment, electricity, solid waste, and wastewater. And in total, for that inventory, this resulted in 437,784 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, or CO2e for short, moving forward here. And as you can see from this graph, the on-road transportation and the building natural gas are the two primary emissions contributors. So on this detailed slide graph, I just wanted to go through a few things. So we talked about having to have a forecast used in the CAP as a next major planning step. So to go through 2045, emissions were forecasted according to what we call a business as usual scenario. This means projecting emissions based on estimated population and employment growth. This would be like if nothing was to change or to be implemented moving forward. And this is the highest line on this graph. Then the forecast was adjusted to account for currently adopted state legislation that will reduce statewide emissions within San Ramon as well. And these include items such as the State Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard, or the RPS, the transportation legislation like Advanced Clean Cars Program, and also things like the California Building Code Title 24 Energy Efficiency Standards. And the adjusted forecast on this graph is the middle line that goes almost literally straight across. So then next, what is the delta of emissions reduction needed in the CAP? So basically what's underneath that middle line on the way down to those targets shown at the bottom of the graph. So after accounting for those state and regional laws and programs that would reduce emissions on a larger scale, the remaining amount of GHG emissions that are needed to achieve the community's fair share of emissions reductions guides the extent of San Ramon's specific actions that are needed to occur to meet the targets. Specifically, the San Ramon 2030 target is 332,995 metric tons of CO2e. And as such, that delta that San Ramon needs to bridge between the 2030 adjusted forecast and the target is a total reduction of 99,462 metric tons of CO2e, which is roughly equivalent of a 53% reduction compared to 1990 levels. And further reductions are also going to be needed to bridge the larger delta to achieve the net zero emissions by 2045. Therefore, determining and developing the San Ramon GHG emission reduction measures and actions is truly the primary scope of the CAP. And it's important to note that the CAP discusses emissions sectors that, one, result in GHG emissions within the community, and two, that the city also has the ability to influence. So for example, it wouldn't include things like regional transportation efforts that San Ramon doesn't have any direct control over. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Emily Saul, to summarize the CAP measures a little more in detail themselves. Thank you.
Oh, actually, I have a question so that I can follow.
Yeah,
up.
go ahead.
Yep.
Otherwise, this is, so all these measurements that you are sharing here, so is this done based on the population and the job within the city?
It's a combination of current and projected land uses, population, and employment all together.
But
So like whatever's in the most recent general plan that was adopted in December 2023 for overall land use projections and the associated population and housing and employment.
But during this period, there are a lot of changes that happened, especially in San Ramon. Now we use Marin County Energy, right? So MCE is one of the biggest clean energy that provides for our residents, and majority of residents are using that. And San Ramon is one of the biggest per capita of using EV vehicles. So how we can say that if this is the same formula you're using across everyone is going to be applicable for San Ramon?
So yeah, it's not like a cookie cutter type plug-in situation. I would actually say compared to working on several CAPs across the state for other jurisdictions, your delta, because you have done lots of steps to date, including with your existing CAP, is actually much less than most other jurisdictions actually, comparatively. So you have done definitely lots of progress and steps to date on these things, but to achieve what are these identified state level targets and goals, there's just some more to do.
Yeah, but state level is like they're just giving away for every city, for example, right? But do we have a clarity on the measurement that in our city, if we are using majority of them are using solar panels for the energy, and we are using MCE, and majority of them are using EV vehicles, that doesn't apply the numbers or measurements to our city, right?
No, we took into account, and Emily's gonna get into the measure details a little bit more here in a second, but definitely all your existing situations and your ongoing projected use of energy, in this case, like you said, for most of the community, MCE was taken into account in both like things like the baseline inventory that I talked about and the forecast, and then the delta to get to the target. So that wasn't missed in the calculations, if you will.
Okay, I would like to listen to the measurements. I'm
Okay.
really curious to know how we got into these numbers. So,
Okay.
thank you.
I have a question. I'm sorry if I may, just real quick. You may cover this during the measurements, but how do you collect this data? Is there like a sensor in the atmosphere? I'm not.
So it's definitely planning and not like, you know, like a tower that like collects emissions levels, right? It's like most planning efforts, like VMT or anything, it's estimates, right? Based on available information. So for example, when it comes to energy, a lot of information was obtained from PG&E and MCE, and whatnot. So there are data sources, and I think it's Appendix D is in dog, is the substantial evidence, or like if you want to get into like the sources of the technical data sources we used, and what we call the emission factors times the activity data equals emissions at a very basic estimation level. And that information of the assumptions used for that are included in detail by the different sectors, and the measures themselves for achieving the reductions in Appendix D at the detailed math level.
Okay.
Maybe we'll go through the measures.
Yeah, because it's not registered. I'm sorry, go ahead. It's not registering for me. It doesn't seem scientific. It just seems like here are the numbers. I looked at the appendices and the data. But continue, please, because I'm not picking up what you're putting down here. So, but continue.
Okay, how about we go through the measures and then come back to it in a little more detail? About
Fair enough,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Good evening, Council.
Evening.
So based on the GHG analysis that Kelsey just walked us through, the city has developed strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the community and meet the 2030 and 2045 targets. The strategies in the CAP represent the overall sector for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And under each strategy, the city has developed measures and actions. Measures represent the approach for reducing emissions in the sector. They are measurable through performance metrics and set within a specified time period. And the measures then have actions or specific steps San Ramon will take to achieve the measures. The actions are each developed to address one of the 6 implementation pillars in the CAP. These implementation pillars they summarize the types of steps needed for successful climate action implementation, and they include structural change, feasibility, equity, funding, education, and partnership. And the CAP has 7 strategies or sector categories for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. These include, first, the Cornerstone Strategy. This strategy is intended to reflect an important characteristic of the community while contributing towards greenhouse gas emission reductions. And on this slide, I will just do a general overview of the measures, but we can get into more detail on each of the measures maybe when we get towards the end of the presentation, just because we have a lot of measures under each of the 7 strategies. So for the Cornerstone Strategy, this has 1 measure to conserve and manage San Ramon's existing open spaces, natural lands, and trail systems. We then have the Building Energy Strategy. This has 6 measures focused on increasing clean community power. That includes increasing electricity used from marine clean energy, decarbonizing new and existing buildings, and increasing the generation and storage of local energy. Next is the Transportation Strategy. This strategy has 9 measures focused first on reducing vehicle miles traveled. And we reduce VMT by providing active transportation opportunities, improving public transit, and encouraging high-density housing development. The strategy then focuses on decarbonizing the remaining vehicle miles traveled, as well as decarbonizing off-road equipment. We then have the waste strategy. This has 3 measures focused on reducing landfill organic waste, reducing the carbon footprint of the food system, and increasing compost procurement. Then the water and wastewater strategy. This strategy has 2 measures focused on increasing the use and supply of recycled water and reducing overall community water consumption. We then have the nature-based carbon sequestration strategy. This strategy focuses on nature-based solutions that draw CO2 out of the atmosphere and sequester or store it in plants and soil. And this strategy in the CAP has 1 measure focused primarily on tree planting. And last, but certainly not least, we have the implementation strategy. This strategy will enable the city to implement the CAP. It has 2 specific measures. The measures focus on educating and engaging youth on climate action and supporting the CAP with staffing to implement, monitor, and update it. And altogether, implementation of these measures would reduce greenhouse gas emissions in San Ramon to achieve the 2030 target, as shown on the bar graph on the left. And then the pie chart on the right shows the breakdown of these reductions, with showing that the majority of the reductions are going to come from on-road transportation and natural gas. And while not shown on these graphs here, the measures do fall short of achieving the long-term 2045 target for carbon neutrality. The implementation of the CAP measures will make substantial progress towards this target, but not achieve it, which will be need to be addressed through future CAP updates. And to help inform implementation of the CAP, cost categories have been identified for each measure. These cost categories identify the relative level of effort needed to implement each measure by the city and the community. For the city side, most of the measures are either no cost or cost savings and low cost, with a handful falling into the moderate cost tier, and 1 having the possibility of reaching high cost. Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. A couple having the possibility of reaching high cost. And then on the community side, most of the measures are either no cost or cost savings, and with a handful falling into the moderate cost tier and 1 having the possibility of reaching high costs. And these costs will help the city allocate resources and identify funding needs to implement the CAP. And the CAP will be implemented in 3 phases, informed by ongoing community engagement, regular greenhouse gas inventory updates, biannual progress reports to the public, and an online climate dashboard. And while implementation of this CAP is expected to achieve the 2030 target, if the city finds San Ramon is off track towards the 2030 target, the CAP may be updated before 2030. Similarly, as mentioned previously, a future CAP update will be needed to develop measures and actions that achieve that longer-term 2045 carbon neutrality target. And to develop this CAP update, which we've summarized here tonight, the city completed several meetings to solicit feedback and solicit and incorporate community feedback. The city met with the Climate Action Plan Task Force, a community task force established by this council, 5 times to review and provide feedback on the CAP. And at the last meeting, the task force endorsed the CAP update with minor edits. The city also presented the CAP to the Planning Commission 3 times to receive input from commissioners and present the CAP to the public. And at the last meeting, the commissioners recommended approval of the CAP update. And the draft CAP was also made available online for a 30-day public review period. Now, to summarize some of the latest edits made to the draft CAP based on task force feedback, we had minor typos were corrected and definitions added for certain terms. We had clarification added to the baseline inventory year selection, and we had 2030 and 2045 GHG reductions added to the implementation table within the CAP. And with these edits, the task force endorsed the CAP. And the task force also had minor typo corrections to the CEQA GHG thresholds. We also received feedback on and incorporated edits to the draft cap based on public comments. There were multiple public comments in support of the draft cap, with emphasis on implementing the hiring of a full-time city sustainability position and emphasis on continuing ongoing community engagement. There was also feedback with implementation details for certain actions. And there was also, based on certain feedback, an action was updated to encourage the use of existing electric vehicle chargers in San Ramon. And an action was updated to include fire resistant as a characteristic for the recommended tree species for planting. And for the CEQA GHG thresholds, there were also no specific public comments received. The recommendation is, based on public comment received, consider adoption of the updated cap and CEQA GHG thresholds, both dated June 10th. And thank you all.
Okay, all right, thank you, Emily. So does council have questions for Emily or Kelsey or Ryan?
I do.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of.
Yeah.
Start down here.
I want to go back to slide 2. Somebody could. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan. I want to I want to be clear on point number 2. I'm going to read this out loud. EIR mitigation measure GH1 requires the city to adopt and implement an updated qualified cap. Where is it required?
The mitigation measure is part of the environmental review document that was adopted, certified and adopted for the General Plan 2040 project that I mentioned briefly earlier in December 2023. And so that mitigation measure, as part of the adoption of the general plan, requires the city to update the cap with the subsequent process that we're doing right now.
Is that not also state law that requires cap now?
Yeah, I think as Kelsey was alluding to earlier too, I mean, it's to comply with state reduction targets for greenhouse gas reduction.
Right, and I may be mistaken. I apologize, and I want this to be right. Where I'm missing is that in the CEQA regulations and the case law, et cetera, I don't see where the city has to implement a cap. I see where the city has to meet certain requirements, but not necessarily mentions you have to implement a cap.
Well, it's a long-term plan to meet the reduction targets. And that's what it is. We have the current cap, it's quite dated now. And so it had to be updated to meet the current reduction targets. And also new information that's based on new technology and new state law too. And then, so at the whole cap process has taken into consideration all of that, and then the various measures have been detailed out as a pathway to meet the requirements. But
Okay.
Ryan?
Do you want to,
any additional information?
add?
Just need to mention that as part of the general plan EIR, that did the analysis for the general plan adoption and the build out scenarios, we included mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And as part of that strategy to show compliance with the environmental document and to demonstrate that we're meeting the requirements under CEQA in terms of disclosure, there's any number of different studies and things that are required for different projects. Tree mitigation, air quality, TDM, and then also as part of it is, again, a strategy to address greenhouse gases, because that's one of the measures that is necessary to approve projects in the city. And so as part of that mitigation, adopting a climate action plan allows for streamlining of approval under CEQA. Without a mitigation measure or climate action plan, that implements that mitigation measure, we would need to do environmental analysis for every project that we reviewed related to climate change and greenhouse gas analysis. So it's also a strategy to streamline future review of development applications.
Right, that's different than implementing a cap.
Well, the cap is the mechanism by which we are able to streamline
Right.
future review.
And I get that, but there's nothing explicitly that says you must establish a cap.
Well, our commitment under our mitigation program was to create a climate action plan. If we choose not to implement that, then we will have to come up with other alternatives to address climate change in relation to the general plan. Again, it's a strategy that we've put in place through the adoption of the general plan and EIR. So again, if it's not a feasible mitigation measure, then we have to come up with an alternative way of addressing those issues. And that could be project by project analysis.
Right, okay. I don't want to get into a debate. I'm sorry, because what it says up there isn't what you're saying now. It's completely different because that says that we have to implement a cap. What you're saying and what the presentation says and what the documents say is that we should, based on the CEQA requirements, we should consider these things, but a cap is a fancier way of saying, hey, we're going to aggregate everything and saying, this is how we're going to.
Well,
Go ahead.
Requires might be a strong word, but the mitigation plan that was adopted for the general plan, EIR, committed us to this course of action. What is in the climate action plan and how that relates is subject to discussion. It's been designed as a way to streamline future review of development applications consistent with the general plan 2040. And so it's in terms of required, if we don't do this, we'll have to come up with other ways of complying with CEQA and also the greenhouse gas reduction targets.
I think I see a point of clarification here. And Councilmember Jouinot, I think your initial questioning was case law and state law requiring to have a cap. Is that correct? You couldn't find anything?
I couldn't find anything that backs that
Right.
backs that up.
But that statement, I believe the word requires, it's our self-imposed requirement through the general plan. As part of the adoption of the general plan, we said that we are going to require a cap in order as a mitigation measure for the general plan. So that word requires is self-generated.
Okay.
So we're requiring ourselves, but in terms of, I think where you were initially going, if I'm understanding correctly, you were thinking more of the state requiring it through state law that we have a cap, but we're not necessarily, we have other mitigation measures as Lauren explained. Does that make
That answers
sense?
my question. Yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not, yeah.
Yeah, it was a
required,
self-imposed
it's
imposed required, but to do it another way, we'd have to go with Lauren explained a case by case
Sure.
environmental analysis for all projects.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
I have more, but continue.
So again?
I have other questions, but continue on.
Oh, all right. Well, we're in the question phase. Who else has got questions?
I have,
Oh.
but you guys can go ahead.
Go ahead, Richard, go ahead.
All right. On the page having to do with the reduction strategies for greenhouse gas, there was a statement said that we want to encourage high density housing, and I'm just not sure how you do that. I mean, how is that a strategy? I'm just, not that I'm questioning, I'm just not sure what that means is in the connection.
Yeah, that measure is supported with the general plan housing element and also a land use element. Also implements that measure with developing housing within the core of the city on the identified housing opportunity sites and through the land use regulation that the city has in the general plan and zoning. So that cap measure is supporting also some of the other measures we have in our general plan.
But just as a kind of simple version, how does that do that? How does the encouraging high density housing work towards that goal? I'm just not clear on that.
Encouraging high density housing within the core could potentially reduce vehicle miles traveled.
Okay.
And also encourage people to walk or act.
Okay, I
actively.
understand that. All right.
And I would add also water efficiency.
Yes, utilities are more available within this.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Marisol, you had something?
Oh, yeah. So there's a little bit of information on page 223 in terms of the approach that they utilize to come up with these numbers. The other thing I would say is, I think what Councilmember Joannet was kind of trying to get at is just that the requirement part was, is more like, it's based on what we have set as a city as our goals. And at the same time, having a climate action plan is like the legs, the legs that give us a roadmap to meet the goals that are state mandated. The goals are state mandated. How we meet those goals has many paths, but the climate action plan, not just in San Ramon, but in many cities across the state of California, have been essential in making sure that we achieve those goals in a timely, responsible manner. From what I see in the data that was used, a regressive model, mathematical model was used to basically, you're taking data from independent sources and bringing that together to provide a regressive model and ultimately the numbers that you're seeing. That may be difficult for some people to digest unless they've been doing statistics or things like that. So, but certainly if you have a means to simplify that and explain that, I think that would be really helpful for the general public as well, and ourselves here. But I think I just also want to seriously thank, everybody on the Climate the Planning Commission, the Climate Action Task Force for everything they did. I really have to genuinely thank them for all the hours and hard work they put into this. This is a very comprehensive plan you've put together. And one of the first top priorities we put in for our workshop this year was quality of life and safety. And a lot of people seem to think that that means police only. No, it doesn't. That means our health. And that's dependent often on our environment. And I think that's often forgotten. And so, I really think that I really appreciate the thought that was put into this. We need something very clear and specific. A lot of people want firm things, like firm answers, but the future is fluid. We can only make predictions and work with that and adjust as more information becomes available. I also want to take a moment to thank personally, we wouldn't even have a climate action task force if the San Ramon Valley Climate Action had not provided some support there when I brought this forward initially in January of 2024, but also I have to thank my fellow council members for supporting it and enabling our community to have a voice in this initiative. So I just want to say thank you, that's all. But thank you to our staff too, because you guys provided the backbone and the means for them to be able to participate and really put their own professional knowledge and their own capacity to work for the benefit of our city.
Okay, thank you. Questions before we go to public hearing, and then we'll have an opportunity for closing comments here in a moment.
I agree, yeah. Thanks for the presentation. I have a question regarding page 5. Here I see on road transportation, it shows total emissions around 200 to 250 between. So I'm just trying to understand. This graph looks great. Okay, this graph looks great, but I need to understand how these numbers came here and how this is applied to our city of San Ramon.
So sounds like we should do a little deep dive on the inventory first. So the inventory is for the calendar year 2019 for the community of San Ramon. 2019 was selected because at the time we started the CAP, this was the year with the best available greenhouse gas data. It also is a good year because it's before the impacts of COVID. So we know it's a more realistic year to project forward. And for each of these sectors that you see in the bar graph here, we have different data sources that are all specific to San Ramon. So I'll start with the natural gas and electricity sectors. For these sectors, we get actual kilowatt hour usage and actual natural gas therm usage from Marine Clean Energy and PG&E. So actual usage for the community of San Ramon in 2019. We then apply emission factors. The natural gas emission factor is consistent across the country, so we use the same one that the US EPA recommends. And for electricity, we use emission factors that are specific for Marine Clean Energy and PG&E. It's calculated for their average for the year 2019 based on the sources where they source the electricity from. And basically you get higher electricity emission factors if you use more fossil fuels to generate electricity, and you get lower emission factors if you use more eligible renewable energy, solar and wind, for example. So Marine Clean Energy has a much lower emission factor than PG&E, and it will continue, well, both will continue to go down through 2045.
Sorry to interrupt, but let's stick to the on-road transportation.
Okay, sorry. So for on-road transportation, the activity data is vehicle miles traveled, and that is provided by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. They develop and maintain and continually update a regional travel demand model for the Bay Area. And it is run specifically for San Ramon in this case to get the data for the inventory. MTC, they recommend that all Bay Area counties use the data from this regional transportation model. It provides consistency across all the long-range plans. So that's how we get the activity data, the vehicle miles traveled. And that let me move over then to the emission factors. The emission factors are sourced from a model from the state, from CARB. That model is also continuously updated by the state every couple of years. And that model provides the average emission factors for vehicles in a specific region. And that is it incorporates the types of vehicles. So normal internal combustion engine vehicles, electric vehicles, hybrids, and it also incorporates the fuel efficiencies of each of those vehicles.
So it sounds like the data is there, right?
It's there for transportation. It comes from a state model.
Yeah. So in that case, why we are using 2019? Why don't we use 2025?
That was just because when we started the CAP development process, 2019 was the year that we had, across all sectors, the best available data. Now we have more recent data for transportation, for example, because it comes from the model. But at the time we started this a couple of years ago, 2019 was the best year because, again, 2020 and 2021, while we had the data, it's not a good year to use for a CAP because it was artificially low because of COVID.
So that's the reason we are going with, otherwise we do have the data in 2025. That's what I'm hearing.
Currently, so the most recent year we have the most recent year of data that we've calculated emissions from is 2022, which is in, I believe, the last appendix, maybe Appendix E of the CAP. So 2022 is the most recently updated inventory. If we were to start another inventory, we could do 2024 today.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking is because we already did a lot of progress in San Ramon, city of San Ramon. So for me, when I'm doing the measurements for my progress, I need to have the right numbers so that I can, whatever the measurement that I'm going to continue to do it, I need to have that progress to be visible clearly, right? That's the reason I want to make sure. So for example, here, if you show me the graph saying that, okay, this is a line and then it will go down like this, then for me, 2019 versus 2025, it's a huge difference. So
2022, we already saw emissions in San Ramon go down. So it's a good thing. We're going to continue to see them go down. And the CAP does have provisions to update the inventory every few years. So we're going to be able to see those snapshots of progress.
And I think the other thing is that even like with COVID, even in 2022, there still were quite a few people working from home. So we almost have to watch and see how that data is adjusting over time as people truly are starting now to go more and more go back to work. And like you said, probably 2024 would be something the most recent we could get that might be more similar to a typical year prior to COVID. That would be my hypothesis based on just trends.
I agree.
Yeah, because most of the return to work that started happening in 2024, right? So that's when we'll start seeing that. But then, okay, the graphs look good because if you show us that in 2019, this is what the best estimate we can take, then so be it. Now, I have one more question regarding on page 14. So I see that public comments, multiple comments in support of draft. Do we have how many number of comments we received from public input by any chance?
You happen to have that number, Ryan?
Like
6 people comment. 6 people provided written public comment during the 30-day public comment period.
6 people commented on this
Yes.
one. This include our task.
Not including, we also had the public meetings with the Climate Action Task Force in Planning Commission. They provided their comments
Comment
orally at the public meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's pretty much my questions. Thank you.
Okay, let me go back to Councilmember Swayne.
Yeah, I had a question regarding the requirements in the document. So, and I read some public comment regarding requiring citizens to change by 2030 from natural gas to electric. Can you comment on that? And if that really is the case?
Yes, there are some measures particularly related to the build energy measures, energy reduction measures for transitioning to electric buildings for existing residential and commercial. And so there's going to be additional development of those measures as they're implemented over time. There'll be some additional feasibility studies and cost implementation that will be developed, and council direction will be provided during that implementation of those measures. So we don't have the specifics for that, but this is the overall roadmap for implementation kind of in the long term. But there'll be additional details in the implementation work plan for the CAP at the future.
But there's no specific requirement in this CAP that there's a mandate for conversion over to.
Right. Yeah. There'll be additional work to work through a process, but what that looks like and what exactly that is, how that is developed has not been determined.
I see. Okay. And just to give also some voice to the public commentary regarding costs. I know there isn't any cost table in here, and because it's hard to gauge at this time, but and I did talk to the city manager. Maybe if you want to let us know, like I know there's not a direct cost, but how will this be funded? What does this look like?
That is a great question and one of my favorites. How do we fund what we are putting into a plan? I look at the CAP as a document that provides goals, and as Ryan stated, anything and everything that we implement would go through our normal process. If a item is proposed that needs planning commission review and eventually council adoption, it will definitely go that route. So if we are talking in the instance of switching over or new developments, eliminating gas and going to electric, that study will be conducted and we will have a full cost analysis that we will present to the council prior to any adoption. So this document doesn't commit us to any requirement. It's basically stating our intention to look into that requirement as a potential for a reduction in greenhouse gases. Now, any one option that we look at, if it's determined by the council to be prohibitively expensive, either for the city or for the residents, then we'd have to shift to something else. This is very much going to be a living, breathing document. There are so many variables that are going into this document and a plan. I would say it's almost impossible to say, we're going to adopt this, here are our objectives, we're going to meet every single one as stated. Right now, it's kind of the best working document that we can come up with. There are state laws. I heard news today, it seems like something, I'll just say interesting, comes out of the federal government on a daily basis, where you could have a decision on the federal level, you could have a decision on the state level that will change our goals and the ability to meet goals wildly. I mean, we've heard of the, what was it, 2030 or 2035 that California said that we're shooting for all electric vehicles. That's great. May not happen. That will change variables. So there's a lot going on here. That's my rambling way of saying that. Anything and everything that is a change to our building code or has a fiscal impact will be brought before some body of the city, whether it's planning or parks or the city council for a decision prior to implementation.
Thank you. And why I'm asking is not to put holes in it. I'm asking because the public commentary, the emails, et cetera, have been, is this going to be enforced on people who want to build something in their house? Are residents going to have to all of a sudden jump into a Tesla? I mean, because the plan itself doesn't address it. I think that's where the misnomer is that it is a living document. It does have guidelines, but it's not the law. It's basically saying, hey, here's our goal, here's how we're going to achieve it. And maybe you could talk a little bit more to that to sort of ease some of the nerves, because that's been a topic from at least people I talked to.
Sure. I like to think of the CAP as it's a framework for implementation over the long term. So it's setting up the framework for measures that the city and pathway that the city can take. For these specific measures, there's going to be additional direction and development and studies that we've been talking about. So no, it's a framework for meeting the overall reduction numbers that we have over the long term. Like Stephen was mentioning, the key to the implementation of the CAP is that it has to adapt to the many changing conditions that could potentially happen over the long term. The state regulatory requirements may change many times over the years. And so that's where future CAP updates would come into play, addressing that or changing conditions locally based on availability of city resources or something like that.
And I also want to just add that in Contra Costa County, I was just looking this up, but there's 5 cities, right, that already have taken initiatives to transition away from natural gas, either through a resolution or demonstrated actions. And unincorporated Contra Costa County as well. All future ADUs and buildings are required to be modernized with clean energy. And so there is a trend across the county in going that direction. But there are also many, many funding resources. I know I went to a meeting last year on behalf of the city that was just talking about how many grants are out there to fund some of these initiatives for sustainability, in particular in this meeting, and the cities aren't tapping into it. For why? I have no clue. But this is one of the reasons that when we charged when we put together a climate action task force, it was charged in addition to helping support and inform the climate updated and renewed climate action plan. Their second charge is to charter the language for a prospective sustainability and resiliency advisory or type of committee. So because there are so many opportunities out there, but it's very hard to keep up with all of that. And I realize that it's huge. And there's so many nuanced things to be able to qualify for that. And when we have so many people in this community who are as passionate about the environment as they are and have so many skill sets, decades. Some of our applicants, some of the people on this committee, Climate Action Task Force, have over 40 years in the energy sector experience. Unbelievable. And I think that it behooves me always when we talk about like, why wouldn't you use it? I know Lafayette has had for over 20 years a climate action advisory type of committee, and they've truly appreciated that. And we actually had the council member come here, former council member Wei Tai, come here and talk about the positive experience that council experienced as a result of that. So, and just, you know, if you look at in terms of funding for transitioning away, I could understand the concerns that some of the residents may have, but certainly we need to be looking at how can we offset that for our residents, you know, through the cap and trade program, the research and development program, the building decarb pilot projects. And there's also a whole bunch of other renewable natural gas and electric vehicle infrastructure. I know for charge points, there's grants out there. So we need to be looking at all these things, but that's what this cap is about. You know, so it's about having an organized vision and plan with measured goals, because if you don't have it, it can seem overwhelming and everybody's sort of operating in silos doing their thing. And it's very important to have a cohesive sort of having our staff, our residents from these various sectors come together and provide perspective, and our consultants as well, to really know that we're actually getting to where we want to be. And I read a lot of the comments here that were also provided, and every single one was very happy with this climate action plan. They were, except for one that was just kind of giving a lot of pieces here and there, but they supported it and they were very impressed by it. And so I just want to thank all of you, honestly, for that work, because over 200 pages of work is not an easy task. It's not an easy lift. So thank you for what you've done.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I think you're hitting on one of the central points to implementation of the CAP. There's a measure that talks about creation of a sustainability position, which will require separate council discussion and action. I think we would anticipate after the CAP, if the CAP is adopted, it would be mid-year fiscal year 26. But the creation of that position would be key to coordinating the implementation citywide between city departments. And also from a staff level, staff would look at doing funding pathways for the different measures. And you mentioned grants, that would be typically a staff function looking at that. And then, so that's a key aspect to the implementation, is the creation of that position.
Exactly. Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, because I forgot to mention that's the other part that a lot of the comments were mentioning. They mentioned both, that they want to see a grant writer, somebody who's a sustainability hire that's focused on, sort of these initiatives specifically and grant writing. And the second component was having a permanent oversight, community-based oversight committee that can help support those initiatives. I agree with them, but that's just my personal point of view.
Okay.
I
other
just
questions.
I want to
Go ahead.
comment. I want to just caution, just from the grant perspective, because they're not consistent, right? I mean, that's the concern, is if you hire full-time or somebody and you say, hey, we're going to base it, this is the grant, we receive X thousands of dollars, and we put somebody, what happens when that grant burns out?
Mhm.
What happens when the state says we're going to pull it, or the feds said we're going to pull it?
Mhm.
What happens? Then the policing and the enforcement of it. I want to be very clear here. I'm not against clean energy or environment. Okay. I'm just being real here from the purpose of, because if we are to enforce it, and we come to that time when we do enforce it, and if we're relying on things that aren't really budgeted for, et cetera, the concern is all the work that's been done goes in vain.
Mhm.
And that is what I don't want to see.
Mhm.
And that's my concern. It is that. It's not whether this is legit. It's really just, are we setting ourselves up for for something that we can't come out of? And are we going to harm the citizens here because of something that we didn't properly plan for? And that's what I want to avoid. I don't want the citizens to pay for something that the expectation wasn't set properly in the beginning.
Sure. Yeah, valid points. Yeah, and the sustainability position staff member would ultimately develop a work plan for implementation of the CAP. And through that work plan, we can develop through the council direction funding pathways or work for the different measures and where to look at staff resources and stuff as we implement based on the phasing plan in the CAP, updated CAP.
And
Okay, let's keep it to questions, please. Are there any other questions for Kelsey or Emily or Ryan? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for being here tonight. I also had some issues with what the city manager said about unknown factors like the current administration. Maybe those guidelines will change. But the other factor I'm thinking about, how do you deal with statistics about the air quality when you have a freeway that goes right through your city that we have no control over? And, those cars are going through the city, polluting the air to a certain degree. It just seems that there is a big factor that we have no control over. And when we're trying to set policy, has there been any thought given to the surrounding regions that affect our quality of the air?
Might turn it over to our consultant team. They're just talking about the model for the transportation model, and you can touch on that.
So the inventory only accounts for greenhouse gas emissions that San Ramon has jurisdictional control over, that they can influence. Pass-through vehicles like on the highway are not included in the inventory at all. So they are not factored into that, the bar graph that you see. The inventory only includes emissions from vehicles that have trips that start and end within San Ramon, or start in San Ramon, end somewhere else, start somewhere else, end in San Ramon. And those last two, you only account for 50% of those trips. So
yeah, I understand why you do it that way. It just seems like there's a lot of pollution coming in from those cars that are just going by, at 70 miles per hour, and that flow would seem to me have a big effect on our air quality. And I know we can only control what we can control, but it just seems like that is a factor that is always going to be there that we really can't do anything about.
yeah, it's definitely a air quality factor. The CAP specifically focus though on greenhouse gas emissions.
All right. Well, thanks for answering that question.
Okay. Other questions? I guess the only question I have with some of the measures and actions in here in the plan kind of affect businesses. And so I guess my question is, what input did we get from the business community on the plan? What public comments did we get from the business community or from the Chamber of Commerce? I know at one point we tried to get a representative from the trades or construction industry on the task force, or a representative from the Chamber of Commerce. Did we have that representative?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the Chamber of Commerce representative on the CAP task force throughout the process.
So the concerns of the business community would have been addressed through that person?
Yeah, have been provided through input from the CAP task force.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then the only other question I had is, we've already talked about the potential for state laws to change or different regulations to change over time. And that might be after we approve a climate action plan. So is there language in the plan that gives us some flexibility to modify our plan based on any changing state requirements, laws, regulations, et cetera?
Yeah, so I was mentioning earlier that due to changing conditions, the city does have the ability to update the climate action plan at any time, even earlier than the 4-year timeframe that's established in the general plan. The city can determine based on the current conditions at that time, due to state law or allocation of city resources. If it needs to be updated, it can be updated.
So we can, but is there specific language that addresses that and gives us that flexibility? Any kind of a, red line entry in here that we can make to make sure that,
Yes, there is. Let me pull it up here. I have a slide.
okay,
So, so in the purpose section of the cap, this is an additional proposed edit in the red text. I won't read through it, but it gets at what I've just been talking about, putting some language in the cap in the purpose section that the city does have the ability to update based on changing conditions at any time.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. If there's no other questions, then I'd like to move to the public hearing portion of the meeting of this item. Can I get a motion?
I move to open the public hearing for this item.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. To move to a public hearing. Okay, motion is adopted. The public hearing is now open and let's go with our first speaker card, please.
Sue Bach.
All right, hello, Sue.
Hi. So, good evening, council members and mayor. And some of you know me, some of you don't. I do have a background in healthcare, so this is very near to me. And so I'm here also as a co-founder of the San Ramon Valley Climate Coalition and a member of the task force. I want to express my appreciation for the staff. Oh my God, they were wonderful. And the community members that were on the task force, a wealth of information that just blew me away. A lot of collaboration happened, a lot of discussion happened, and we had a lot of public input. So now is the time to approve it. Committing to this climate action plan allows for a lot of flexibility, and that is one reason why I like it. It's a really good plan. We put a lot of hours into it, and I believe that it deserves to be approved. We also must look at forward thinking. We have to think in the future. We have to think of the kids. And the board would have accountability built into this climate action plan so that we can have more community involvement. We're creating a charter at this point. And as a resident for over 20 years in this city, and a coalition member, and a climate an advocate, I know firsthand the energy and conditions in our community to do this work. We have students, professionals, and families eager to support this cap and improving not just air quality, but the target goal of decreasing greenhouse gases. And this will establish more resilience in the climate community here in San Ramon. And as a resident, let's channel our energy into showing that San Ramon doesn't just plan for the future. We lead it. That's important. So tonight, I especially urge you to take two critical actions. One, approve the climate action plan. Two, approve forward with forming a climate action advisory board. And this is an opportunity to move from planning to action, and to do so with full support of the community behind you, the task force, the planning commission, and myself included. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Luz Gomez.
Good evening, Mayor Armstrong, council members, staff, and community. My name is Luz Gomez, and I'm a 45-year resident in San Ramon. I also have the privilege of representing a good portion of San Ramon on the East Bay Mud Board of Directors, as well as being a commissioner on the Contra Costa Climate Action Task Force, a member of the San Ramon Climate Action Task Force, and a co-founder of the San Ramon Valley Climate Coalition. Tonight, however, I'm addressing you as a member of the San Ramon Climate Action Coalition Task Force. First, I want to thank the council for having had the forethought to appoint such a body, because I do believe that because of having appointed such a body, you have tapped into the wisdom and expertise of residents that have made the product a bolder and more comprehensive and more forward-thinking document than it would have been. I also want to thank my fellow task force members for their valuable contributions. We spent many hours working on this. And I want to thank the Planning Commission for having recommended adoption of the plan. Of course, I want to thank the consultant team. You guys were fantastic at answering our questions when we had many, and also for transforming into strategies what we thought as ideas, and what we were making many requests of you guys. So thank you for that. Tonight, I definitely would like to urge you guys to adopt the plan, and more importantly, to take the necessary steps to implement it. With this plan, the city will be in line with so many other jurisdictions in our area that already have really bold and ambitious climate action plans. In the near future, you will be receiving the task force recommendations regarding the creation of a standing advisory body on climate action. It is my hope that the City Council will see the wisdom in creating such a body. So thank you again for the opportunity to address you tonight, and I stand ready to help the city in any way that I can with the plan's implementation should you adopt it tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sharad Kathrani.
Hello, everyone, Mayor and the council members, as well as city manager. I am one of the founder of the Climate Action Task Force, where we were with the youth standing outside the youth who were standing outside the city hall back in 2021. It took almost 4 years from there to now. And as city manager mentioned about it's a living document. For a living document, we need to give a life, and we need to have a really advisory board or a committee focused on making sure it goes forward, because our youth and our children are looking forward for us to do right thing for them. The previous CAP was done in 2011. It had a very ambitious target. Some of them were achieved, many of them were not. And one of the biggest thing was there was no living document, no life to it, like allowing it to have an advisory board. So either we have an advisory board, a committee, as well as since we got a measure and funds, we should be able to have one city staff looking after it. And I highly recommend passing this CAP update, and at least have an advisory board to look forward for it to be implemented. And thank you all the council member to bring it to this stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
That was the last speaker card for this item. There was 2 written comments received from Brian Swanson and Robert Vanderlip. That is before you, as well as in the back of the room.
Yeah, we acknowledge receipt of those written comments as well. Okay, with that, can I get a motion then to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Got a motion and a second? Okay. Motion passes. Public hearing is closed. So now the matter is before the council for additional comments, consideration, and recommendations on how to proceed on this item. Again, we're focused on the climate action plan tonight. and the items in the climate action plan. So welcome your comments at this time. Who'd like to start?
I can
I
start.
can-
Oh, you got,
Go ahead.
okay. Thanks to Climate Action Plan Task Force for 5 public meetings. And then thanks to our Planning Commission for 3 public meetings. That's almost 8 meetings for our community residents to part of it and participate so that they can provide the feedback. And thanks to those 6 public comments, whoever came there and provided it, it's very valuable. See, this is something that we need to invest in today so that a lot of people keep talking about climate action and all this for future generations. No, it's not about future generation. Right now, it is for us. It is for us and for future generations. So we need to, I know there is definitely some concerns around the cost and all that, but if we don't invest now, then we'll be paying a huge price on this one. And then following us, then our future generations will end up paying much bigger price. So keeping that in mind, I think we need to positively focus on making this happen. And I would definitely like to support this effort. Once again, thanks to the staff, thanks to the consultant team for answering my questions. So that provides a good clarity. And also one more thing is, actually 2 things. One is we need to, I believe in measuring the progress. So when we are continuously doing this one, I need to see how we are going to measure that progress. Because I know we got 2019 data, but then if we can get 2024, then following 2025, like that, if we can keep measuring that, that will help us. And also that will make it easy for our residents to understand. I cannot tell to my residents that statistics and all these are very complex, you cannot understand. No, I need to have a data that my residents should be able to digest it in easy form. So definitely we need to have the data. And the second thing is, I definitely want to see how we can improve our outreach, public outreach, so that we can see more participation. Because the more participation, we'll get more ideas, right? Like, for example, before we create a task force, we were at certain level, but now after we create a task force, we move forward to the next level. So it's very important that we get more public outreach and get more feedback from our residents. That will help us big time. So once again, thank you for everyone who put all your effort and time in this. Appreciate all your great work.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Who else would like to comment? Councilmember Rubio.
So again, I just want to thank everyone because there was a lot of minds and hands working hard behind the scenes, even outside of those meetings that were held, to bring forward all of the information that comprised this climate action plan. And I thank you all, both the staff, the public that was part of the task force, as well as the consultants. I know this was not easy. And I think that it's especially timely. We are having more and more of a demand from the state to build more housing, especially. And so we are going to continue to grow as a city. That's a given. And knowing that, we have to plan for that. We have to be prepared to meet the needs of our community in a responsible and ethical manner. And a big part of that is making sure that they are living in a healthy environment. So I think that I really appreciate this, especially right now as we're building out. I think this is important so that we make sure, as was mentioned, that we're taking proactive measures rather than reactive measures and trying to retrofit things later on, which will be much more expensive, as was also noted. But also more expensive is healthcare. I mean, once we're sick, that costs a lot of money. That is the single most expensive cost we have as a nation. And it comes from all sources. But the environment's is a big part of that. And yes, And I think that the more, should we have an established committee and board to work, I think that that will definitely help us in terms of continuing to grow our reach and bring more people from the public into the fold and getting more feedback, because they are very connected. As was mentioned, we have other elected officials who are part of this board, this committee right now, the task force. And so they also know people, and it's a multiplier. It amplifies over time. So again, I thank everyone who did the work. I thank the council who supported it back in January of 2024 when I initially brought this forward for consideration, and just thank you. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Zweinak.
I want to echo council members' comments as well. Thank you guys for your effort and work. I will candidly tell you, I am skeptical of the plan just because we don't live in a bubble. That's not to say that I don't appreciate it or I don't really approve what's said in it. But for me, it's one of those things where if we're going to do it, as Vice Mayor mentioned, if we're going to adopt it, let's make sure we adopt it right. Let's make sure that we do teach other communities as well, because we don't live in a non-smoking section, right? We have to consider expanding this out further. So I can't scientifically get behind the comments in this. I am just in practicality for the plan itself. But there's a lot more work I think that just needs to be done to really tighten this up and to ensure that other communities as well get involved in this. And it's not just us. So thank you guys for your work.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Adler.
Yeah, I will echo everything that's been said, including some reservations for the future. But there's no doubt in my mind that we have to adopt this plan. And I believe I was at that city council meeting, although I was in the gallery when my fellow council member now, Marisol, introduced that back in 2024. And at that time, I knew that was the thing to do. And we got to be smart in the future. But as far as implementing this right now, there's no question that we do need to do that. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Anybody else? No. You already.
Yeah, I
spoke,
already
right?
spoke.
Okay. All right. All right. So, I mean, I've got some observations as well, but also want to echo the appreciation of the members of the task force, of Rincon, of our staff, the planning commissioners, the public who provided the written and the spoken comments all throughout this process. So thank you again, task force members. As Kelsey pointed out early in the presentation, there's kind of two main areas that are really the big focus areas. One is, transportation, vehicles, and then the other one was sort of the natural gas. And so I think that's really where the primary focus ought to be, on things that we can do, that we can move the needle more in those areas potentially. Some of those other ones just have lower inventory areas. It'd be hard to kind of meet our overall goals if we don't hit the big ones. But they're in this draft, in the plan, there's like over 130 different actions. And there's, all through all these different measures. And I see most of them are, I don't know, aspirational. I mean, their goals are things to strive for. And so as the packet says, it's more of a roadmap on how to get there, or as Ryan said, it's kind of more of a framework on how to get there, not necessarily a specific work plan. And that's maybe what's got me a little concerned is, what's the next step? What's the work plan going to look like that kind of puts this into true action? Some other observations that some of these things in here may be, outside of, the city's ability to control. I mean, there are some of these actions kind of have an expectation that the public will do certain things, certain behaviors, or certain buying patterns, or whatever. So I think that's kind of and same thing with our businesses, or the delivery trucks or whatever that come in, or commercial vehicles. We may not have the ability to fully control, what that, even if we kind of move towards reach codes or different codes to say, we want people to do this, we require people to do this, people still have choice. And so that's got me, taking a look at some of those different actions in there. And I'm also a little bit concerned about some of these things are really in the short term. These are 2025, 2026 actions. And here we are. We just approved a budget for 25, 26. Some of these things cost money. So I'm not sure that the timeline is realistic on some of these because, as was mentioned earlier, in order to implement this whole thing, not the whole thing, but a lot of the things in here are going to require additional staff work, presentation either through the planning commission or to the city council, and then we're going to have to vote on things and everything else. That's not a quick process to do a lot of that. Government works pretty slow. So some of these may be very, eager goals. Maybe we can do them in 25, 26, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of those get pushed out a little bit as hard as we do try to kind of get there. Another observation I had was there was a lot of information. You mentioned public outreach. There's a lot of information there on public outreach, informing the public, setting up a table, doing things that, comprehensive studies and all that. I'm not sure who's going to do all that, but that's something to be considered as well as we implement some of these actions. Got to figure that out. Who's going to do that? There's no staff dedicated to doing those things. And I guess going on a little bit, I think we need to be clear in what we're approving here with a climate action plan. What does that actually mean? What are we committing the city to as we move forward? So in other words, what's the city council doing when we approve this plan? And so I don't think we're agreeing necessarily to all of the measures and actions exactly as they're spelled out in the plan. Again, I think a lot of those are aspirational. And I think there's a couple different categories here. There's things that since the 29 baseline year, I think there's some things we've already implemented. And that's a good thing, frankly, because we're already well on our way to implementing, making progress towards a reduction of greenhouse gases. So there's some of those things, and we're doing other things like updating our bicycle master plan, densifying housing, protecting open space. It's already required that new construction is going to be electric. There's no more gas being put in, things like that. But there's another category too, and those are the things that are being recommended to implement that haven't been implemented yet. Some of these are the different reach codes or requiring every new customer sign up for an energy plan to go to MCE Deep Green as a default, things like that. Or staffing a coordinator position. That's been talked about tonight as well. The need to potentially, to staff a coordinator position. So I think for the actions that we're already doing, that's great. And I think the plan is just calling for more robust tracking of some of those and documenting taking credit for the things that we're already doing. For the actions that are not already in some other approved work plan across the city, then we need to develop a work plan. And that work plan is going to have to include specific resources. It's going to have specific costs and identify whether these are one-time costs or enduring, ongoing costs. Got to talk about the timing of the implication, the timing of the implementation, the different impacts, take into consideration all the legal changes of state law and things like that. And I do think that, as been talked about here tonight, this crosses every department in the city. This isn't just, community development may have helped develop this plan and had the lead on that, but every department is affected. So whatever staff coordinator we come up with really has to be able to reach across all departments, in order to, to coordinate all the different actions that are being called for in this plan. So having kind of said all that, I'm glad to see, Ryan, that there's some language in there on potentially changing the plan. We may have to change it a couple times. We may have to modify it a couple times. It's a broad framework, a broad work plan right now, but as state laws change and things like that, we may have to adjust. We may not be able to do all the things in here based on state laws or changes on the federal or state level. So even though I have mixed feelings about the whole plan and the realistic, practical feasibility of the things, I mean, it sounds really good. I think there's a lot of work to do to implement it. However, I do intend to vote in favor of the plan. Any other final comments before we move to the portion where we need to consider adoption? Okay, hearing nothing else, then can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2025-073, repealing and replacing the climate action plan in its entirety as adopted by resolution number 2011-094 and adopting the updated climate action plan CAP and the California Environmental Quality Act CEQA greenhouse gas GHG emissions thresholds and guidance report.
I move to approve.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, just a point of clarification, does that include the additional language on Ryan's last slide regarding the living document?
Yes, thank you for that. But that I would kind of amend that motion to include the red line change that we saw presented by Ryan Driscoll on giving us some flexibility. Okay. So we have a motion by Councilmember Rubio and a second by Councilmember Adler. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Again, thank you to all who had their hand in the production of this plan. Because now the hard work comes with coming up with a work plan on how we're going to implement all this. So I look forward to that. All right. With that, we are through with that item and we're on to city number 10, city manager and city council member comments or matters initiated. Let me start with the city manager.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. A few items this evening. The first item is I am pleased to announce that we have an opening date for the Bollinger Canyon Bridge. We will be hosting a ribbon cutting ceremony on Saturday, July 19th. Again, Saturday, July 19th. If you want to be one of the first people across the bridge, it will be at 10 a.m. I'm sure we will have a few speeches from local officials and then the ribbon cutting, and then the bridge will be open full-time to residents after that. So come out and be one of the first people to cross the new bridge. I'm also pleased to announce this evening that San Ramon was recently ranked first in quality of life on a national scale. So the top city in the nation for quality of life as defined by the nonprofit group, the Social Progress Initiative. This group, they go beyond the normal metrics that are used for quality of life of commute times and income levels and education levels in a community. They use 50 or so different unique identifiers that go deeper into items in the community, such as safety, access to opportunity, and more. We have that listed on our website if anybody would like to see. They analyzed over 500 cities based on population, and I'm very proud, and it really is a testament to everybody in this room, the council, staff, and the community that we were able to rank #1 nationally. So hopefully we get a trophy or something. I don't know, or if we don't, I'll be sure to make one so we can proudly display it somewhere. And then the final item tonight, the City of San Ramon is developing a trail master plan. The community is invited to share their input in a short survey, which is currently available on our website at sanramon.ca.gov/SR Trails. And with that, that concludes my comments for the evening.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to council member comments. I just asked that council members will try to keep this brief and just kind of highlight some of the meetings you've been to and that sort of thing. And if there's other council members present, say those things. That way we don't have to kind of repeat it over and over again. So with that, who would like to start tonight? Council members.
Yep. Thank you. First off, congratulations to the City of San Ramon, to the staff and the residents. Thank you guys so much. It's been wonderful. Congratulations. Also want to say congratulations to the class of 2025. Congratulations to all graduates and my daughter included. Just for events, went to the mayor's conference with my fellow colleagues here. We hosted it here in San Ramon. It was a great venue and a lot of good discussion. So thank you. That's it for me, Mayor.
Okay. Let me go down to Councilmember Hadler.
Yeah, I'm sure the city manager is glad that he left the city council of Livermore so he could make that earlier statement about the city getting that award. I wanted to mention we on May 28th, we were at the Veterans Hall, the Tri-Valley Cities Coalition, and this is a coalition of a number of our East Bay cities. There was some discussion. The staff there, they are in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento and looking at bills that are affecting our area. There was a quick discussion, Rebecca Barkayan, AB 290 was one of the bills that she is trying to get passed regarding the California FAIR Plan to reduce policy lapses. And it's in the Senate now, hasn't been passed yet. There's concern about the Office of Management and Budget in Washington, whether there may be some freeze on federal financial assistance to some of the cities. So that's kind of up in the air. Probably go to litigation. There was June 5th Contra Costa Sanitary District discussion of the district budget, and that passed. There also was let's see, East Bay Mud. Luz was here earlier, but there was a great discussion last Friday about, actually it was, Friday on the, we were briefed, and Luz is the Ward 2 chair, and so we had a lot of discussion about that organization. Been around for, about 100 years, 123 years, and all the things that they do, and a lot of upgrades on their infrastructure. So it was a good course, kind of the history of that organization and how important they are in our lives today. Today, the mayor and I went to the ribbon cutting ceremony over in San Ramon here, the Image Studio Salon Suites on Sunset Drive. Beautiful facility. I had no idea there's like 20 some separate salons. And so it's really going to be a great place for the community to visit. And I was impressed with the building and the staff. And so we're glad to see them helping our business in San Ramon. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Rubio.
Okay, so likewise, I was at the TVCC dinner meeting in Danville, and the only thing I will add is that I thought really stood out is that they mentioned that the state budget outlook revealed a $12 billion shortfall with a proposed $10 billion infrastructure bond. Key bills discussed included AB 650 for housing element compliance, SB 79 for transit-oriented development, and SB 707 for Brown Act modernization. There were concerns about the fiscal cliff for transit funding and the need for local control over housing development were also raised. I have a question from the city manager. I know I brought up a while ago something about the SB 79 and the mayor's mentioned that we were talking about it. Has there been any updates from staff on that?
I am not sure what our current update is, but I'll be sure to get that to the council either via email or memo format.
So
That would be great. In terms of our position and thoughts on that bill, that would be great.
Yeah, and with the TVC coalition, sometimes we do try to coordinate with all 5 jurisdictions, and sometimes all 5 don't agree, and then we go on our own. So we'll be looking into that. I'll check on the status. I'm not sure
yeah,
if we've
if I
written
could just
something yet.
add on that, I mean, I did talk to Sam Cahill the other night at the Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference. And she mentioned that since it's already kind of moved through, passed by the Senate, now it's kind of moving into the next phase, and it's been marked up a little bit. It's been changed a little bit. So whatever, I saw the draft and gave the okay to sign it for as one of the 5 mayors in the Tri-Valley. But I think we may need to look at the revised language to make sure what we're now opposing is consistent with what the current language in the revised bill.
Right, and it's also a bit of a balancing act because if they do revise it, then we might write another letter. And most of the time, our strategy, we found it's effective to, oppose unless amended. So you throw in your amendments, because if you write just an opposed letter, they usually just, okay, we put that in the opposed pile and don't pay attention to it. But if it's opposed with amended, then they want to know what issues we have with it. So as it changes throughout, it's not uncommon to modify letters.
Okay, so you don't need anything, I mean, the staff can handle that. You don't need that from us as a council, or we can just kind of consult with you individually?
You can call me anytime individually. If the issue falls under our legislative platform, the TVC legislative platform, then the mayor is authorized to sign letters. If it's outside the legislative platform, we'd need to come up with a process for that. We really haven't addressed that in San Ramon because most of the items do fall under that legislative platform.
Right, because I know like some cities, like in Brentwood, they had some kind of they brought it to the council, a resolution that the council supported.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's something that we need to do, or is that something that falls back only on staff?
That would be a future council discussion on how you want to handle legislative items. So currently, if it falls under the TVC platform, the mayor's authorized to give an okay on any letter.
Okay. Okay, so, all right, so then basically we have to talk with staff and the mayor, is what I'm hearing, and TVCC, right? Okay.
Participating in TVTC.
All right, great. And so then on May 4th, I attended a carpenter's training facility here in Pleasanton. It was just basically talking about their apprenticeship program and really giving a tour of the facilities. There were several elected officials there. It was just and one of the things that I thought was kind of really a great idea, and they already, I think, did it in Pittsburgh, was having them actually go and talk about their apprenticeship programs to even junior high school students. Sometimes them knowing that they have other options, if for whatever reason college doesn't seem like the route for them. And this happens a lot. For example, foster children, only like 10% of foster children actually go to college. Of that 10%, only 3% actually graduate from a 4-year college. So we need to give these kids some kind of, something, other alternatives that are viable for them and work for them that can really give them a middle income opportunity in life. So I thought that was a really great idea. Then same day, May 4th, I attended with the mayor, the John Muir Health San Ramon Outpatient Center ribbon cutting. And really the key there that was mentioned by one of the physicians that spoke was, one, that they're welcoming a new full-scale facility that will allow doctors to improve their doctor-to-doctor collaboration with patient care. Specifically, like if they are seeing a patient and they need a patient to be seen sooner than later, they can actually, since they're under the same facility, actually talk directly with these other specialists to try to coordinate care and expedite the process of getting care. Because as many of you probably have experienced, I know I am, it can take months sometimes. And before you know it, sometimes a small problem becomes a bigger and possibly permanent problem when care is delayed. On June 5th, I went to the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference as well. And along with my council member, Joinette, we applied for the Association of Bay Area Governments to be a member there. Sadly, we didn't get it, but I do hope to encourage Cal cities to consider term limits because some people are sitting there for decades. I mean, it's just sort of like, for the reason being is, it's important to give new people from regionally different areas the opportunity, and with different knowledge and skills, the opportunity to serve. Everybody has a gift. I truly believe everybody has a gift to give. And when we create barriers to that, we're actually hurting ourselves. So I really hope that they will take that to heart. Then on June 6th, I went to the CC, basically County Connection operating and scheduling. Main thing there was just talking about, the ridership. It's continuing to increase gradually as over time. It's continuing to increase. The youth free rides for youth actually took off very well, very strongly. A lot of people are riding the bus now. And this is obviously very critical because we want to capture young people today and get them used to changing their mindset that, hey, maybe their first option of transportation is public transportation, not their car. Speaking of environmental initiatives, right? So, and then, from the paratransit, we talked about improving dispatch efficiency and customer service. And they're actually thinking of having splitting dispatch strictly to handle the hourly schedule and having someone else handle when there's more complicated complaints and things like that, so that they're not being held up. And then on May 8th, I went with the mayor to, on May 6th, I went to, Director Gomez's and the East Bay Mud Water Supply and Resilience presentation, which was very informative. They really talked about, speaking of sustainability and resiliency, they were talking a lot about that and how they're going to sort of their roadmap and how they're going to keep up with water, maintaining a high quality of water and reliability as well and availability. And then on May 8th, I went to the Eagle Court of Honor where Rishi, Shreyas, and Shuria from Troop 621 Eagle Court of Honor were became Eagle Scouts. And the mayor gave a speech and we together, he was graceful enough. We handed out some certificates to them. It was a great celebration and the food was amazing.
Very good. Okay, did I get everybody? No, Vice Mayor.
As my fellow council members already covered, TVCC, I attended that and also briefly attended Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference. And in addition to that, 2 community events. One is San Ramon Valley Diversity Coalition. So we worked on the next 1-year plan on the events as well as the panel meetings during this meeting. And then on June 4th, we had our second the AI Foundry meeting. We got entrepreneurs, then venture capitalists, educators, students, everyone. We all gathered together on working towards how to bring more AI industry, artificial intelligence industry into San Ramon. It looks pretty positive at this point. So hopefully we'll have incubator that is going to start within San Ramon for AI. And if for anyone, if you need any information on this one, please reach out to me or visit the AI Foundry website. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And for me, on the May 29th and 30th, I'm a director on Contra Costa Transportation Authority, so I attended the annual workshop. There was broad discussion about the future of CCTA. The two main items that we discussed were the countywide transportation plan, or CTP 2050. CCTA has already completed the blueprint for the plan and is now in the plan development phase. And then later on, once they get the plan developed, they'll get into the plan implementation phase. We also discussed at length the integrated transit plan, the ITP. That's a big part of that was proposed transit priority corridors, or TPCs as they refer to them. The big TPC in our area really is in South County is the 680 corridor. So a lot of discussion on future initiatives, the bus on shoulder initiative, as well as the coordinated adaptive ramp metering that will be kind of a future project. We also talked about mobility hubs and kind of the overall customer experience and using transit and how to improve that. On the 29th, I also attended the BART Fairgate ribbon cutting over at the Pleasant Hill BART station. That's really in South Walnut Creek, by the way. But they've all of the Contra Costa County BART stations now have the new fare gates. And we're the only county that can make that claim at this point, but that's good news. On the 2nd of June, I attended the SWAT Board of Directors meeting. This is the Southwest Area Transportation Committee. I'm on that as well. It was more discussion on the integrated transit plan and the transit priority corridors, but with more of a focus on the La Miranda area, as well as Danville and San Ramon. And other than that, the rest of the things I've been doing have been mentioned already. But I did get the opportunity to do the Iron Horse Trail bridge, kind of a pre-walk, and which was nice, along with a good many of the Public Works staff. So that's really going to be a beautiful thing. I'm looking forward to that opening up here soon. So, and just one final thank you. Not a lot of staff here, but just a thank you again to the staff who helped prepare for our hosting of the Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference. All 19 cities were represented at that, all the mayors, and we got legislative updates and the usual thing that we do. With the special presentation that evening was by the county clerk, the recorder, and kind of gave an update on the past election, some statistics on that, and some of the building of trust and the safeguards that they have in the entire election process. So, and with that, that's all I've got. You got an alibi. Okay.
Sorry, one exciting news is we have now San Ramon Grizzlies minor league cricket. Just to give you some perspective about it, there are 24 cricket teams, minor league cricket teams in US, and within California, there are 3 of them. Out of 3, one of them is going to be in San Ramon. So Grizzlies, San Ramon Grizzlies. And this is a great way for our youth cricketers for pathway to the national cricket team, also into Major League Cricket team. So thanks to staff for helping with it. It's a lot of work, but then thanks for making it happen. And congratulations to all cricket community as well as the leadership.
Yeah, big news on the San Ramon Grizzlies, as well as big news on the ribbon cutting, July 19th for the bridge. And also big news on San Ramon being #1 quality of life. So way to go, staff and everybody involved. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.